Go, Ab, go.
All right, so full spoilers for movies that are very old. I just get in the habit of doing that. I don't know why. Yeah, we're talking about the first 3 Spider-Man movies by Sam Raimi, Tobey Maguire. You know these guys, these classics.
Kirsten Dunst and James Franco and Willem Dafoe.
So let's talk about like movie to movie, I guess. So
Let's start with 3.
Really?
No.
Really?
Okay. Let's get the bad one out first.
No.
Spider-Man 1 then. Excellent movie that holds up very well.
It's got some hokiness to it.
Get closer to the mic, Ben.
It's got some hokiness to it, but at the same time, I love it. I don't know if that's just me with nostalgia. There are a few like little outdated jokes, like when he's in the cage match. He's like, "That's a nice outfit. Did your husband make that for you?"
That's the only outdated joke. Yes.
Yeah.
That's the only one.
Out of that, it's still a very fun movie. I absolutely love it, and of course, Willem Dafoe's performance as Green Goblin cements Green Goblin for me. Every Green Goblin since that movie, outside the animated shows, I was comparing it to Willem Dafoe. So that's like, there's no contest. Willem Dafoe is the best.
Excuse me. Hey, I'm really glad we watched these 3 movies again because it's been a long time, and I loved Spider-Man growing up. This first movie is excellent. It's and like the nostalgia goggles aside, like now that I'm at the age that I'm at, I can just look at this, and this is just an excellent movie. It has nothing to do with the comic books or Spider-Man. Just Sam Raimi made a really good movie. And the thing, watching these movies again, I'm like, holy shit, I really miss them when movies can just be movies. Because as much as I love the MCU, guys, holy shit, this can just be a movie on its own. It does its own thing. It has a beginning, it has a middle, it has an end. Satisfying. It's hella campy. Yes, it is 1960s Spider-Man to the T, and it's excellent. I loved it more than I remembered. I think it's excellent.
You get random shot. Like one of the times when I was watching this movie, there's like this random shot. I think it was a jump scare when Green Goblin goes, "Rah!" I forgot what scene it was transitioning.
Is it when in the fire?
No, it wasn't in the fire. It was just like this random. I think Peter was dreaming or something, and it might have been right before Aunt May was attacked by Green Goblin. I don't remember. I just watched this movie this week too, but it was one of those things where I'm watching. It's like, I don't understand why that's there. Probably could be a jump scare, but at the same time, it adds to the movie's charm.
That's Sam Raimi's filmmaking style.
Yeah, it's Sam Raimi's filmmaking style comes through in all 3 of these movies. In a way, and I think that when he leans into like the things that he is good at, it heightens the movie in an interesting way, even though for the most of the time he's doing something not generic, but like something more mainstream than his normal style, and then he like sprinkles in his normal style throughout, but sparks. You haven't said anything yet.
No.
It's a podcast.
Yeah.
Talk.
Well, just leaving time, that's all. Yeah, I don't know, like it's great. Like I don't have a lot to add on a summation level.
Yeah.
No, let's get into
talking
it.
about shit. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my god.
Notes.
Okay, man, let me tell you, Spider-Man's great. The zoom ins, the lines, I love Bonesaw. I think about Bonesaw all the time.
There's a thing in this movie that I really like that I didn't notice the first time I seen it. I haven't seen it in a very long time. I didn't quite realize how well the parallels of Peter Parker and Norman Osborn were. Their journeys together to become Spider-Man and the Green Goblin are so well paired. There's equal amount of screen time for both. And you kind of see how they're both on a similar path, but choose to take different directions.
They're both scientists.
And I think it's something that has been there in a lot of superhero media, but it's really well done. It's almost uniquely well done in this one, I thought.
Yeah. I think it's a perfect origin.
Yeah, I do too.
Like of every superhero movie of the last 20 years, like the origin is perfection. It's so perfect.
Ben, you gonna say something?
I was just gonna talk about like the meme lines. The absolute highlight of me rewatching these films again was just seeing the memes and just me. Well, not only that, but we grew up with these. I will never forget the weekend Spider-Man came out in theaters. My entire school was a buzz about talking about Spider-Man. My mom bought me a Spider-Man animated TV show VHS to watch in preparation for the Spider-Man movie coming out. It was kind of like Pokemon in the late 90s.
Yeah.
But that year in 2002, it was all Spider-Man all the time that week, and everyone was hyped for it.
It was a hot thing.
It was.
Sparks, you look like you got your notes ready.
So I think that one of the things that I was thinking about when I watched it this time is that they did a really incredible job creating the movement of Spider-Man, because it didn't exist before that. And like even today, they're still taking cues from what they established in this movie for live action, how Spider-Man moves, how Spider-Man lands and swings and turns and does all these things, how he's framed. They've evolved, they've adapted, they've introduced new ideas, but the basic idea of his motion is established by the CGI artists in this film and some of the stunt workers. Like, that's really foundational, and I think it holds up really well. I think the CGI, you can see where it's dated, but it's still pretty good. Like, it still holds pretty well.
He's a little smooth, Spider-Man is, when he's fully CGI. When it is, because it is weird only because his suit is so textured. So when he's a fully CGI character, you lose that texture.
The nice thing about it being the early 2000s, and it's really like Spider-Man 3 is the real case, but like they did practical as much as they can, because like, you know, you can't have a Green Goblin flying around in the middle of the city. That's impractical. But you can have a close-up shot of the Green Goblin. That's real. You can do that.
You can also build a set.
You can also build a set.
But even the suits themselves, like both Spider-Man's and Green Goblin's suits, are gorgeous suits.
The amount of emotion that Willem Dafoe is able to get out of that Goblin outfit is incredible.
He's very expressive. He has to be.
Especially when his eyes go up and it's just his eyes, you can kind of see his mouth through his.
He's got the crazy eyes.
I will say, like, the disadvantage of like super high definition at this point is like there are some moments where like I need to not look right at the mouth of the Goblin mask, or I can see that Willem Dafoe is not talking at the moment when his line is happening on the outside. Like 4K has ruined me. Like it's like funny. I got like don't look at his lips because he's not talking.
So I still have both of my original copies of Spider-Man 2 on DVD that were full screen editions. So when I'm watching it on my PS4, it's in a 4:3 with black bars on the side.
Zack Snyder be blessed.
Poor baby. Like, I would have just let you watch the high definition codes.
I already had them in my house, so I figured might as well.
Hey, the way God intended.
No, even though it doesn't look the best, it brought back so many fond memories of me falling in love. I've always liked Spider-Man. Spider-Man was already was a household name in my house because I mean he was one of those most popular superheroes. My brother and I would rush home to school after school to watch the new Spider-Man show. That's how I know Morbius, Scorpion, all those guys.
Hell yeah!
And just that live action movie just put it on a whole nother level. And if I knew about the comic book store close to my house, you bet I would have been going to buy comic books after watching this movie.
I got for Christmas, I got Spider-Man and a DVD or a PlayStation 2. And I was like, oh my God, my life will never be the same.
I even bought those like silly string web shooters. They
me too, 100%.
There was a youth center by where I used to go to school, and they had a PlayStation whatever played Spider-Man 1. PlayStation 2, and we had Spider-Man 1, and I played the shit out of that game.
Yeah, I played that on GameCube.
I will.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Quick little story. I will never forget when my parents came home and they gave us Spider-Man on DVD. We were so excited, but unfortunately, we were going to our friend's house down in Murrieta for a visit. And we were thinking, okay, cool. Well, we did. But right before we were getting ready, they said, but this other family is going to be there, and they don't allow their kids to watch anything above PG.
Mormons.
So they were super religious, too. But so the entire car ride over, my brother and I were like two lawyers trying to build up a defense of why they should let us watch Spider-Man. Because even though we were like, well, we could just watch it and they could go do something else. And my parents were like, but that's not fair. You all kids have to play and do something together.
That is not fair.
And we wanted to watch Spider-Man, damn it. We did not. And we were pissed.
That's why you shouldn't be religious, folks.
To be fair, like there's a scene where he vaporizes people's skin off and they're just skeletons.
Ow, am I?
That's just Mars Attacks, baby.
Yeah, that's cartoony.
I watched this with Zara. She'd never seen it before, and when that moment I was like, whoa, she loved the movie, by the way. So that's why I kind of like pushed back, like this movie holds up so well that like you can watch it today and still love it.
It's just a good movie.
Yeah,
it's nothing.
It's just a good movie.
Like the comic book relevance of it. It's like it's just like a good movie.
But also it leans into maybe not necessarily all the aspects of Spider-Man, but definitely most aspects of comics. Like it
leans into Spider-Man 60s 100%.
Yeah,
where he Peter Parker isn't as cool as he is modern. Like he's still a nerd, but like 60s Spider-Man is a dork. A dorky dork. Nobody likes him. People make fun of him. Like old school bullying, not like modern bullying. Like old school, like people would like push his shit down. Like that's all real. That's all like old school Stan Lee shit.
When he's trying to chase after the bus, and then Flash Thompson's giving him shit.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I really think that works out really well for the movie because it's not afraid. At the same time, look, there was X-Men happening at the same time at this movie. So like one franchise was doing so well, embracing its comic book roots, while as the other was ashamed of it. Well, for the most part, like they really leaned away from the comic book elements of X-Men.
They wanted to be more sincere.
No, that's what I mean. Yeah, yeah.
And so Spider-Man comes along, and it's this. It's the, it's kind of a modern day Richard Donner Superman.
Yeah, 100%. The inspiration's everywhere.
Yeah,
all over
and it works because Sam Raimi has an affinity for that era of Spider-Man, that 60s era of Spider-Man that Ryan was talking about. That's this era of Spider-Man that Sam Raimi read.
Yeah. It's also like the most bright and colorful New York has ever looked.
Yeah,
it is. Every other time I think about New York City, it's like movies up to like after Spider-Man or like in
the
the
next set of movies.
Like the next set of movies, yeah. It's like it's so
honestly,
dark and sad. Even though like the run down parts of New York are still pretty damn colorful.
Honestly, like even Spider-Man 2, it starts to get a little less.
Yeah.
Like I love Spider-Man 2, but it does.
The one is the most comic booky, campy. Like 2 definitely tones it down a bit.
Yeah. I think there's incredible transitions.
Oh my god, dude!
They're
so
all
many.
around. Like when I was watching the movie, of course, like there's the one that's been going around on Twitter lately, which is the explosion of the generals that cuts to the graduation caps flying in the air, and I'm like,
that's cinema.
This
baby.
movie, man, it knows what it's doing. Like incredible transitions throughout.
That's when Norman Osborn graduates to become the Green Goblin.
Yep.
Yeah.
There you go.
The energy throughout the film, it's just really breezy and dynamic. Willem Dafoe's a force.
He's so good. Willem Dafoe is so good in this movie.
I always loved. Well, I think this was the first movie I knew. Every movie after this, when I saw Willem Dafoe, I never saw. Oh, hey, it's Willem Dafoe. I'm like, that's the guy who was the Green Goblin.
Viewing it this time was the first time where it really stood out to me. Like, wow, Harry's just kind of a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Like as far as a friend, he sucks.
He's a trust fund. Yeah, he's
like he knows how Peter feels, and he like goes behind his back and sneaks around and like gets with Mary Jane, and then he's like, Peter, my roommate, I'm real sorry. I'm sad right now because Mary Jane, I didn't tell you about her, and also she's now upset with me, and make me feel better, Peter. Make me feel better.
Yeah, he's so jealous of Peter that his dad likes him, and like he has everything, but he actually has nothing because he's kind of a loser, and he's so jealous of his nerdy friend. I'm like, oh, what a loser.
He's just so constantly such a bad friend.
Yeah.
There's a scene in this movie there's a couple of scenes in this movie that I thought were interesting, and it harkens back to like if you watch all the Spider-Man movies, you can watch like the evolution of comic book movies like that. It's chronicled in those movies, and I really forgot about the era where they would just kind of shoved character names into dialogue just because they didn't think they were going to get a sequel. This is the only time. And so like Dr. Kirk Connors fires Peter Parker in this movie.
Yeah.
But he shows up as a professor in the next movie.
Eddie.
And then Eddie Brock.
because he was an intern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
it tracks that he's like, because it's right after he's finished high school, he was interning for Connors. He's always working with Connors.
Yeah.
I love it.
And then Eddie Brock is mentioned 2 movies before he'll show up.
Yeah.
I thought that
Eddie
was
Brock, but not Eddie Brock Jr.
No,
Daddy
Eddie Brock Jr., sir.
Hold on, I am not making a case for canonicity. I am not making a case that this ruins the movie at all.
No, I know.
I just think it's really fun going back to these early comic book movies.
Those are just Easter eggs.
And hearing the Easter eggs.
The only reason I respond that way is because they make such a point of him always saying Eddie Brock Jr. in Spider-Man 3.
That's true.
It's like Doctor Strange. Oh, that's good.
So
let's take
it. Real quick. I just think it's just cool inclusivity because I was thinking about just this movie. I'm like, man, it's cool that there's just a dude on the board who's a dude in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It's
not for any reason. He's not a comic character. They're not trying to build something with him. He's just a dude in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
That's nice.
It's also fun because like if you like watch the show or read the comics, like Dr. Strom turns into Robot Master, who is a guy who is like a Norman Osborn like lackey turns into a Robot Master. And it's like, man, comic books like they're so like he's that character dies, but like if it's MCU, like he would show up like 3 movies later or something. And I'm like, it's just cool to have a little.
The leader still hasn't shown up.
He's the only one.
That's true.
He come back.
What's the guys who played the leader?
Tim Blake Nelson.
Tim Blake Nelson.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
It's a perfect Thanksgiving film.
Gobble gobble.
Yes, it
Thanksgiving happens in this movie, and all the themes of the movie are like, this is Thanksgiving. This works for Thanksgiving.
Gray.
This is it. Macy Gray Day Parade.
Yep.
Yeah. Jameson's amazing. Obviously,
J.K. Simmons.
He has one of his best scenes, which is when he's protecting Peter.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
I love that scene so much. when Green Goblin shows and Peter's in the room, and Jameson is like, I don't know, he sends his stuff into the mail, like it's such a great scene, and J.K. Simmons is an iconic performance right out the bat. There's every time that buzzer is such a good comedic device and character building device, because as it goes on and Betty Brant is trying to give him like notes and whatnot, and there's a bit, I think it's in this movie, I hope it's in this movie, it's either this one or the second one, where he goes, Chief, your wife lost her checkbook, and he goes, thanks for the good news.
Oh yeah, that's this movie.
That's this movie. And I think that's all hilarious and tells you everything you need to know about J. Jonah Jameson.
Yeah, he's like truly perfect casting. Oh yeah, every scene. Yeah, the
Spider-Man 2. Call the caterer. Tell her not to open the caviar.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, he's good with money. Yeah.
He's so funny.
And of course, the last one where it's like it's like
yeah.
what?
We'll get to the bit.
No,
we'll
you
get to
can't
the
get.
bit.
Yeah,
we'll get to. We can't talk.
All right, let's talk about the performances real quick.
Okay, go ahead.
I think Tobey Maguire's totally fine. He is very dweeby. He's very good at being dweeby. I think everyone excels so much better in the second movie. I think everyone, of all the Sam Raimi movies, like the characters are kind of not in a negative way, but they're kind of like simple and flat. But it's because it's a '60s comic book movie, right? You know what I mean? Like they're not.
Yes.
They're not. There's not a lot of depth, but I don't mean that in a negative way. It's just it's very. The second movie is the perfect like what I want those characters to be, and I feel like here they were all kind of softened up because the second movie everyone has so much more personality. I think.
I think Tobey Maguire does a really good job of internalizing a solid Peter Parker in this film and across the trilogy.
Yeah.
He just never fully becomes like Spider-Man.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah.
When he's in the suit. And maybe that's okay, because I think for these movies, like I see Peter Parker when I see Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And I think other films, the Garfield ones in particular, have a sense more of like Spider-Man and Peter Parker kind of feeling like two separate performances from him. And Maguire, it's always Peter Parker in the Spider-Man suit. Like that's the sense you get. And
yeah, there's no change.
And it makes it feel a little less like Spider-Man. But I do feel like it's consistently Peter Parker, and maybe that works because this movie is so much more emotionally about Peter Parker.
And he is like, he obviously is not as quippy or jokey as he is, but also like 60s Peter Parker wasn't joking because nonstop.
That's because his jokes are terrible.
Yes.
All of his jokes are bad.
Yeah. He's like a dweeby.
He's a huge dork.
It's you who's out, Gobby. Out of your mind.
Yeah, I love that. That's so good.
The entire adaptation and rendition of The Tragedy of Uncle Ben is super good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Cliff Robertson is
everything about it from the lead up, the car scene of talking and why before he goes into the wrestling match to coming out to the moment with him to chasing down the burglar. All great. It's honestly, classic film stuff.
It's honestly just a really well balanced movie with everything it's trying to do. It is it wholly succeeds and at what it set out to do.
Yeah.
I think that's always to be commendable when something succeeds so well.
Who's the at Rosemary? What's her last name?
Harris.
Yeah, Rosemary Harris. Amazing Aunt May.
Always bringing
like
her
nails it. Like what? Okay, when I was watching Rosemary Harris, it brought me back to the time we read some of the '60s Spider-Man books, and when she's talking to Peter Parker, obviously he doesn't say in the movie, but it's the scene where he goes, "Aunt May, your cake is the most." Yeah.
Oh, it's so good.
I was just watching this. I'm like, God damn, this is just like that scene. I mean, he doesn't say.
Oh, I forgot that. Yeah.
But it's not straight from the book, but it's like you were saying, this is that '60s comic book.
It's that mentality,
and I've never seen that before as a kid until now. Rewatching, I was like, this is the '60s comic book Spider-Man. It's hokey. It does have good action.
I was like, oh boy, I do love you, Mary Jane. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's got that. It's got all that. It's got all those elements. But at the same time, I was watching this, and I'm like, Sam Raimi could have put Aunt May, this is the most, or some sort of slang, and Aunt May goes, Peter, what does that mean? And you could have had an interaction like that. I went, this is perfect.
Yeah,
it really is like why I think my parents were so enthusiastic about like enjoying Spider-Man when it came out and watched it, because like it was their Spider-Man. It was their childhood Spider-Man on film for them and for us, but for them. And I think that's why it works so well for that audience necessarily. It's an incredible script. I want to shout out David Koepp for being the screenwriter of it.
Hell yeah.
Because like we've said a lot about Sam Raimi, but it is a tight, well done script.
And he did all three.
No, he did not. Not even a little. And we'll talk about the other screenwriters after.
Okay.
He only did this one.
Interesting.
It is just this one.
Yeah.
but yeah, it's a tight script. It's got some incredible stuff. I love something I was making notes of as well. I was watching is like there's lines that are repeated to Peter by different people. There's obviously the "Don't tell Harry" as a motif that's carried over, but there's also "Thank God for you, Peter." People saying it in different circumstances and reasons. That's just kind of like these things that keep just repeating themselves in different cycles through Peter's life. Also, "We are who we choose to be" is
we are
said by both
said
by Goblin, but also said by Uncle Ben.
Yeah.
Really keeping all those ideas constantly circulating around Peter, I think is a super strong. But it's like done even better than poetry because
I
it's
just
all
made it
just
as a
like
joke, yeah.
it's all just like circulating around Peter constantly and keeping it like he is being burdened by these things at all times. I think it's rare you see a film be that tight in how it chooses to use lines like that. The fact that like "Don't tell Harry" isn't like a bit, but like a thematic choice, and that usually it's said in a different context, especially the "Thank God for you, Peter." Like those are two wildly different readings of that line.
Bitter.
Take my hand. I really love, in a similar way about the writing, I love that Osborn sees himself as a hero who the people turned on.
Oh, yeah.
This was the first time that I really read that in his performance. I'm like, oh, he's saying all this stuff to Peter. It's not just like a bit to make Peter want to be a bad guy with him. He's not just saying like, what they love to see is a hero fall, fail, die trying. He's saying, this is what happened to me.
Yeah.
This is what they did to me. I was the hero, and they loved that I failed.
They didn't know how much he sacrificed.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And I love that that's what's in that script. I think that's an incredible thing.
Bonesaw is ready.
Bonesaw is ready.
First appearance of Mysterio.
True.
Bruce Campbell.
You can't say that though because he plays 3 different people.
I know, but like the fourth film, the fourth.
Yes,
film,
I know the bit.
It was supposed to like we saw the concept art for the fourth film, and the guy dressed as Mysterio, looking a lot like Bruce Campbell. I'm just saying.
Goblin's scream when he turns in the fire, always a great moment.
Oh yeah,
I love that.
There's a lot of
so predictable.
There's a lot of just such quotable lines that Goblin has.
Almost every line.
Absolutely.
Sleep.
Much like the Star Wars prequels, where there's just shit that's we've kept in our cultural osmosis forever. But like, yeah, Spider-Man's super good. I really
Finish it.
I really love. Yeah. Okay. So I wanted to tell a story about Finish It because I told Ryan already, but when I first saw it and a few times after the first time I saw it, I didn't hear Finish It. I heard I did hear Finish It, but it's not the context that I got out of it. I thought it was Goblin telling Norman to finish it, as in kill Aunt May.
Oh.
And that Norman was resisting it, and Goblin was like shouting at himself. And that was the reading I had like the first time I saw it, and for like a couple of times after, until I was like, oh, he's telling her to finish the prayer.
Deliver us from evil.
Yeah. And I but like the first time I saw it, I remember distinctly like thinking Norman was struggling against the Goblin. The Goblin was shouting at him, going like, finish it. And Norman's like resisting it. He's like, finish it. And he's just shouting it at her.
That's like a Dark Avengers thing that happens.
That was the reading I had. And I'm like, because before that you have like Norman and Goblin kind of conflicted about it. I could see like Norman not wanting to kill Aunt May and like pushing back against that concept, but being more okay with killing Mary Jane.
So real quickly, if I may pause. Have the chat be acknowledged. Grayson is in the chat.
Hey,
hello, Grayson. That's why I liked Tobey as Spider-Man. He really sold the fact that he's more nerdy and a bit of a brainiac.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, and Mag says, love the fact that how this Spider-Man started out in entertainment work before as a superhero. You mean as a wrestler?
Oh yeah, wrestler.
Yeah. I mean, like that goes back to the classic comics for sure.
Yeah.
I love the way that he gets his ass kicked in that last scene. We love battle damage suits. And
I do.
I love that you just watch him get the shit.
Bro, the
beat
thing
out
about
of him.
all 3 of these movies, Sam Raimi knows how to hit.
Yeah.
Like the impacts in all 3 of these movies are like, you feel them when somebody gets hit or they get like punched or knocked over, they fall off a building. Like boom, the impact's like, ow, owies.
Or when his arm gets cut when he's fighting Goblin inside the burning building.
Yeah.
There's a Stan Lee cameo. Blink and you miss it.
Oh yeah.
In this one.
In the first 2, they're blinking and you miss it.
Because they're the same cameo. He's just pulling someone away from falling debris.
Yeah. I think that's really funny.
Before he finally got a line. Yeah.
I can't remember when was the first time I noticed that was Stan Lee. It must have been well after I had this movie on DVD, because I was watching. I was like, "Is that Stan Lee?"
It was definitely I was too young to know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
probably didn't even know what Stan Lee looked like when I first saw Spider-Man.
I had no clue who Stan Lee was when I first saw Spider-Man.
the couple of last notes I definitely want to get through are I really love Norman's last attempt to like appeal to him, just the way that it comes out. I think that's just a really well written and well performed.
You
scene.
saved me.
Yeah. Thank God for you, Peter.
Yeah.
Incredible visual choices and throughout the film, but like I specifically love the one about when Norman dies and Peter like lowers his head and then the goblin mask is overlaid next to him as he's like kind of defeated by Goblin, and Goblin's like grinning there even though Norman is dead. I think that's just, the movie's full of that kind of imagery, but like it's so good.
I love that. Like I think it's like the same year because the Two Towers comes out like with all the Gollum stuff, with like Gollum talking to himself. Willem Dafoe just talking to himself in a mirror, and them not even doing a cut. It's just like it's him being the Goblin, but then just immediately reverting into Norman. I'm like, that's just acting. They're just letting him do his thing, and I'm like, hell yeah.
I really love the design and feel of the pumpkin bombs, as you said. Like you feel every hit. You feel when that pumpkin bomb explodes.
Yes. Oh, the slow motion.
Every time that pumpkin bomb goes boom, you feel it.
Right.
And they take their time to have that moment be something that you're just gonna slow it down a bit on it, or even go fast on it. But it's something that the audience is gonna be like, oh dang,
for sure. And then the last thing is like it starts here, and it's gonna come up for these films and also for the next ones. But one thing that Ryan and I've talked about that like is something that for a lot of reasons it's very obvious like the current Spider-Man films don't have is New York is a character in these movies. And New York is a character in these movies big time. And like as hokey as it is, there's nothing better than them being like, you're gonna pick on a guy who's trying to save a bunch of kids. You mess with one of us, you mess with all of us, and then throwing the shit at Goblin. Like, love it. That shit is so good, and it works so well because it's such a good balance of, especially in Spider-Man 1 and 2, of New York loving Spider-Man and Jameson being mad about it, and
because they don't love him.
Both of those things, because when you just have Jameson being mad about Spider-Man but don't have people praising Spider-Man, it doesn't work one-sided, and it doesn't work as well.
We haven't talked about the music at all.
Danny Elfman's incredible. The score is so good.
You know Sam Raimi is directing the Multiverse of Madness. Do you know who's doing the music?
It'll be Danny Elfman.
It's Danny Elfman, baby. I can't believe it.
He's coming back from Age of Ultron. He did half of Age of Ultron soundtrack.
But I'm talking about he's talking to Sam Raimi again.
I know. I'm just saying.
Age of Ultron, get that shit out of here.
Danny Elfman's music is really great. I really love his Spider-Man theme.
It's honestly iconic, like for real. Like I listening to it again, I'm like, oh my god, this isn't nostalgia. Like this is truly one of the best soundtracks ever made.
For me, it was like, oh, this is nostalgia, but it was like also like, damn, this hits hard.
And
also,
you feel its absence in the third one.
The music choices, the needle drops, the credits. Take me right back to high school
for sure.
The soundtracks of my high school life in these movies.
I'm definitely a person who really appreciated that these were films that had pop culture music needle drops. I think fit the theme, fit the moment of what you're doing in the movie, but fit the time of the period that you were watching it as well.
Yeah, they're not egregious or anything.
And releasing those songs in tandem with it, like the soundtracks that came out in tandem with it, were really strong. This is something that I also think is lacking in Spider-Man 3. You don't have great needle drops like you do in Spider-Man 1 and 2. I don't think it's as well orchestrated together. I mean, outside of it, like, kidding, but like there really aren't. And like you think about like some of the sequences here in Spider-Man 1, or like one of my favorites in Spider-Man 2, which is the I don't remember the artist or the song title off the top of my head, but it's the part where Peter starts like weighing between wearing the suit and the Spider-Man suit, and it's like the song saying like, you tried so hard to be someone, but you forgot who you were. And like that song plays through the whole sequence of him trying to get ready to go to Mary Jane's show and trying to be this person. It's so well calculated into working into the film. Sam Raimi's very smart about what he chose, where he chose to include it.
Two more things I want to say about Spider-Man. One is that watching a movie from early 2000s is always fun because you get to see a lot of cameos from actors that you've come to know.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Joe Manganiello, damn.
Yeah, Joe Manganiello. There's Xena's in
Lucy Lawless.
She has a brief cameo, and Elizabeth Banks before she was like really Elizabeth Banks. Ted Raimi, of course. Ted Raimi shows up.
He's in every Raimi movie.
So like seeing all those was really fun, and I really want to talk. I want to say one more thing about J.K. Simmons. I talked a bit about
real quick because you were talking about just the
cameos.
Small appearances. The one that I was like, holy shit, didn't even register in this movie is Octavia Spencer.
Oh, Octavia Spencer. Yeah, you're right.
Herself.
There is a there's so in Star Trek Discovery season 2, Anson Mount shows up as Christopher Pike, and he walks off the transporter pad, and he's a fully fledged character that you immediately get and you immediately know and you feel comfortable with, because you feel like the moment that man walks off the transporter pad, you've been watching him for like 50 years. I played this role. J.K. Simmons filled the J. Jonah Jameson role in much in the same way, where the moment he's on screen, he's a fully fleshed out, fully formed character that has just existed for years before that moment.
As far as I'm concerned, like J.K. Simmons doesn't exist. That is J. Jonah
It's just
Jameson.
J. Jonah Jameson.
That's the guy. That's him.
And
Also has fake teeth, which is real funny.
yeah. I love his performance. There's just such good stuff. Anyway, shall we go into Spider-Man 2 then?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure we'll reference back to this one, but amazing film. Amazing film.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely better. Like I liked it before, but like better than I remember.
Closer to Spider-Man 2 than you thought it
Honestly,
was in your
like
memory.
honestly, like real good.
Yeah.
Like, less negatives than I remember.
Mag suggests that the song title be Raindrops.
Oh no,
No, that's
that's
a different one.
No,
There
that's a
is-
different one. But that's also a good use in Spider-Man 2. But that's not
yeah.
the one
I
I'm
will say
referring to.
something that only is better with age, the Macy Gray stuff. Because in 2001, that's kind of like cool, Macy Gray's in this movie or whatever. But 20 years later, that's irrelevant. She's just a musical artist that's happening. So it's like it's not as intrusive because it's like a pop culture reference at the time.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So it's just like they're at a parade.
Yeah.
It's not like this
Macy
is
Gray's just singing at a parade. Not a big deal.
No, nobody knows who Macy Gray is anymore. That's what I mean.
I do, but I get
Because
it.
we were there.
No, I get it.
Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
Infinitely better movie. One of the greatest movies ever made.
How do you top a great movie? You make a greater movie.
Everything we just said about the first movie, yes, but better. And I'm
Yeah.
not joking.
So-
Every
so-
element.
So real quick, this is based on a story by Alfred Goh, Miles Miller, and Michael Chabon. The screenplay is by Alvin Sargent. And Alvin Sargent would go on to screenwrite with Ivan Raimi and Sam Raimi for Spider-Man 3.
Huh.
Based on a story by Sam Raimi and Ivan Raimi.
Huh.
But yeah, so David Koepp didn't come back.
One and done.
This is mostly on Alvin Sargent.
Well, this
Alvin.
movie is incredible.
Yeah. Like for real, like all the complaints I had about like any of the acting, it's gone. Like Tobey is like so much more like he feels so much more like in the role. Like he's still that dweeb, but he feels like looser. And like he just feels like the character, and he's just like he is so put upon. This is, I said to Sparks, like there will never be a more perfect example of Spider-Man dealing with his life work struggle. This is the pinnacle of him trying to be Spider-Man and a person at the same time. Nothing will beat this.
Funny. Okay, not funny enough, but as I was watching this movie, I was like, damn, for a movie that came out in like what, 2003, 2004? Yeah, for a movie that came out in 2004, this is still so relatable today, because as I was watching Peter Parker deal with him being Spider-Man, his school life, him trying to work at the pizza joint, it's just, this is burnout. This is putting so much on your plate, and you're not being able to you want to do everything, but you can't do a single thing. This is him dealing with burnout.
Jack of all trades, master.
Why is this like so relatable to me today?
Because this is the one where Peter and Spider-Man are allowed to be what they're always meant to be, which is it feels like it could just be you.
Yeah.
And like even Spider-Man 1 has that, but this is like directly hitting like this is anybody.
He's a regular person.
This is a regular person who's also a superhero, and this is how it is.
Yeah.
And no other movie has captured it this well, because even like the Superman films and trying to like do Jonathan Kent, like Superman still has it pretty easy as Jonathan Kent. Clark Kent. But this is the pinnacle of like, yeah, you get this because this is everybody at some point.
Yeah.
This is everybody.
We all have the same
even if it's not
time.
work specific, it's just overburdened by responsibilities. Everybody hits that point.
My favorite line is in this movie.
Sure.
Butterfingers.
Hey, Spider-Man just stole that guy's pizza.
I thought it was, I don't know why, but I thought it was gonna be Rent.
Oh no, Rent's pretty good.
Yeah.
No, but that I forgot about that line completely, and just the
Whoa. Spider-Man just stole that guy's pizza.
he definitely went the rest of his life thinking Spider-Man stole some pizza.
He went to Jameson saying, "You were right, 100%. You were right. I
watched him steal this guy's pizza.
like 10 boxes of pizza just gone.
It's the same one where he does where he almost gets hit by the car and he does a flip, and the kids are like, "How'd you do that?"
Oh yeah.
Drink your milk, eat
vegetables.
your vegetables. That's what mom's always saying.
He's such a cool dork.
Yeah.
He is. There one thing that did a little it didn't bother me. It was just something that I was like, oh my god, just say you love her already. Was the whole I love you, Mary Jane. No, I can't be with you. I don't know why. It just like it just bugged me a lot in this movie than it did in the other ones. Because he's like, oh, I do want to be with you, Mary Jane. Well, you don't want to be with me because you can't make the time for me, so I'm gonna go with this other guy. And then
I'm trying to understand what you're saying is bothering you about it.
I don't know. It's just like it's the whole like, yeah, I do, I don't, I do, I don't.
Oh, you're gonna hate the next set of movies you watch then, buddy.
Yeah. But it bugged me a little bit, but at the same time, it didn't take me completely out of the movie. Because at the very end, it was all that, oh, she understands because he's Spider-Man. He has to protect her.
You just wanted him to say, "Hey, I'm Spider-Man." Like, that's why we can't be
like
together.
the whole phone call when the answering machine stops and he finally confesses, even though he knows the machine is done.
You wanted that to be real. You wanted
kind of
okay.
yeah.
I don't agree.
Then you're just that's missing the point.
Because that's the arc of the movie.
That's the whole.
I know.
That's his whole thing.
I know. The thing is, I know. It just bugged me a little bit for some reason in this viewing. It might not bug me the next time I watch it.
Sure.
Gotcha.
Interesting.
Well, Peter Parker, lazy but brilliant.
I think the thing that's important, Ben, and maybe I'm misreading what you said, is that it's not that he's changed. His feelings for her aren't changing. He loves her the whole time. What's changing is that like he's like, oh, I think I could just maybe stop being Spider-Man. Oh no, I can't. It's not like he flip-flops back and forth. He's hardline like, I can't be that. I want to be as close as possible without being that. And then he's like, maybe I can be that. No, I can't. And then circumstances are revealed, and so he's forced to like say like, and in Peter's mind, he's still saying like, I can never be with you because of this. Mary Jane has to make the decision to say, I get to make a choice in this too. F you. We're gonna try this because I love you too, you dumbass. So I think that that's important, is that Peter is always of the mind, except for the one time where he thinks. The one time where he thinks maybe I can step away from this because I'm Spider-Man. I can't be with her even though I love her.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
He's not wishy-washy.
Right. I mean, I could be trying to explain it off. It's just I know something about that was bothering me just a little bit. And then but as the movie continues on, I was like, this movie's still fantastic.
I think the human drama in this movie is excellent.
Me
I
too.
think it's excellent. And I guess I can understand like the will they won't they of like soap opera dramas, and like I get that, but like the execution of it here, it is 100% Peter Parker. He is that nerdy dude who's like, he can't tell the woman he loves that he loves her because he's a nerdy dude. But that's who he is.
Here's my rebuttal, I guess, to Ben's thing. It's melodrama.
Yeah.
This movie, all three of these movies are melodramatic. And
100%.
this came out in a time period where blockbusters were allowed to do this. Lord of the Rings is incredibly melodramatic. This melodramatic. Pirates of the Caribbean, melodramatic.
Oh hell yeah!
Like these kind of up the emotional dial to 11, so that you're just getting nothing but like raw nerves walking around.
I think
as
blockbusters
emotion.
peaked around like the 1990s, 2000s, 2005.
Yeah.
Like, that was the perfect era,
And so
baby.
like they were allowed to be melodramatic. So having Peter Parker wrestle with the fact of like, if I'm Spider-Man, I can't be with Mary Jane, so I don't want to be Spider-Man anymore. That's very melodramatic, and it works for this movie. There is nothing in this movie that doesn't tonally, stylistically, story-wise, narratively, that just does. All of it works. All of it works at 100%. This is a perfect movie.
I honestly, I rewatching. I'm like, this is a perfect movie. I was waiting for something to be like, I don't like this, and we watched the extended edition. Everything is also even better. All that stuff.
Yeah,
is
all
good.
they did, like the only thing that might not work for you, and it's like your opinion. Like it worked for me fine. The elevator scene is like so much longer.
It's like a 2-minute.
It's a whole bit
scene
because he's like a marketing guy, and he's like, I can help like rebrand you. Like we're gonna make it big. We can get you commercials. Like let me think of some ideas here.
Children's books.
Yeah. So that it's like a whole bit of him trying to like market to Spider-Man.
Does this also include the scene where J. Jonah Jameson puts on the suit? And
Yes,
it's like,
yes,
oh,
it's
man.
excellent.
That's in the extended
The train fight.
Dang it.
It's honestly one of the best fights in movie history.
That train fight
I can't believe it's so good still.
is so good, and also I love the how they puppeteer / CGI, because I know that at some point Doc Ock's arms are CGI.
Yeah,
but I remember watching a special feature, and most of the time
it's
they're
puppets.
practical.
There's
puppets.
16 people working on that.
It's so good.
I love Dr. Octopus. Doc Ock, Alpha Melina delivers an incredible performance, just flat out. And then all of the arms you can see like different characterizations in each arm and how they move, and how he's talking to them, and having something real to kind of work off of is really helping him. The arms look great. There's the incredible scene where Sam Raimi's just like, I'm gonna do it real quick.
Yeah.
Where the arms are just killing people, killing the doctors.
Yeah.
Is insanely good.
It might
Right.
be like honestly like one of the scariest things in a superhero movie.
Oh,
Yeah.
you kidding me? The scene where they're dragging the girl underneath into
And
the
the
darkness.
nails.
And
The
the
nails?
That's a
Oh,
wax
God.
floor.
I know it's a wax
Yeah,
floor,
I just like the
but
special effects of it. I love it.
I will never forget seeing that movie in the theaters as a kid.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it freaked me out because I know now I was like, okay, I'd want to know how they did that now, but no.
The chainsaw harking back
Yeah.
to Evil Dead.
Yeah,
So good.
But when you're a kid and you see that and you see this lady gripping on these floors so hard that they're peeling off,
So
it's like,
good,
oh,
man.
she is desperate.
Some things that we the action in this film is incredible.
It's top notch.
Super good. Like the action in the first one's pretty good too. This one is like up in the ante big time. There in the extended edition, both fights with Doc Ock have extended bits. In the bank scene,
Joel McHale.
they go up the building, and at one point they crash through a window into an office, have a physical fight in there for like 30 seconds, and then pop back out to the side of the building and go around. And on the train, there's a part where they're fighting on the side of the train for a while, and he pins Spider-Man down. Spider-Man gets hit by another train and has to catch back up.
That's cool.
It's a whole incredible scene. And like Ryan's right, like the extended edition, it's all just more good. None of it hurt the movie. Like it's all just more
They just
good.
cut it for time.
The swinging choreography is also better in this movie, I think.
Oh
than the
yeah,
first
yeah.
one.
Like they're able to advance.
The way he like steers himself with the different webs is really cool. There's a bit where he like pins the needle between the truck and then like following the train. I think all
Such a
really
good shot.
interesting.
You could definitely tell the CGI got upped from the first movie.
The budget.
I mean,
significant.
yes. Once
yeah.
again, it's a 2001 or 2002 movie.
2004, Ben.
No, I'm talking about the
The
first
original
one.
one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the original.
2002.
Yeah, the original one was 2002. Yeah, the CGI is a little raw. You can tell. But once again, it's for its time. It's still pretty good.
Even here, there's sequences where the CGI has dated itself just by virtue of being
Old.
Yeah,
old.
It's the best of its time.
Well, I will say, like, I watched the not the 4K versions of most of these, but the still high definition and scaled up, and
Yeah.
the CGI still looks good even scaled up.
Yeah,
I
I'm
had
just saying
to-
that I was mostly getting at there's still the issue that like Spider-Man's very beautiful, very textured suit, which I have this huge nostalgia goggles for. Is smoother when we get to the CG Spider-Man. There's only the one time they have a fully CGI Doc Ock close up. Looks a little wonky. Wonky, but ultimately, it's the CG is used in conjunction with how they were choreographing the film and the fight sequences, so they're able to blend it so well.
Yeah.
I think the movie looks
honestly
gorgeous.
like some of the special effects in here still look like better than some of the stuff that comes out today. Like it just like the composition of it and like everything. It's so like you just see every frame. It's never tight.
so brightly lit.
It's so brightly
It
lit.
is.
Yeah, and it's like it's so focused, and you always see everything. And like it's not like a Michael Bay movie where there's a cut every 7 seconds. Like that train
A
fight.
lot of long shots.
There's a lot of long shots. There's a lot of people beating the shit out of each other. It's crazy.
The physical stunt stuff, like when you see Spider-Man bend like the Matrix to avoid that other subway train that's coming at him,
Yeah.
and just everything. The train scene itself,
or in the train when he loops around the pole and is going to jump out through the nether pole, but then he gets hit with the tentacle.
yeah. Oh man, so that train scene is just so good. And even the campiness is still here. It's like you have a train to catch, and he jumps off.
Oh, his little
And-
smirk.
Yeah, just a little smirk. Like
He's
"Haha."
again the Butterfinger thing. Like he's got charm, man.
Alfred,
Real
I've-
quickly, Ben, if you don't mind. Mag is in the chat. Says
Yeah,
wants
yeah.
to shout the opening credits with Alex Ross is awesome.
I was
I
gonna
want-
bring them up. Yeah, good job.
I wanted to mention. I tweeted about that because I'm watching this movie. It's like, damn, why is this so good?
The Alex Ross art is
Mhm.
incredible.
Mhm.
And the tentacles are nicknamed from the Three Stooges, but there's 4 of them. Mag, make that make sense.
The fourth one is Carly.
Um,
Again, like practicality. Again, obviously you can't be practical all the time, but like committing to mostly practical, like it really helps.
but
Especially
they lean into their restrictions.
Yeah, like the close-up scenes where like he's smoking a cigar, he actually lights it, or they take off his hat, or he drinks a drink. Those are actually really happening. And it's like, yeah, that took like 100 takes, but it looks real good. When
Yeah, because there's a bunch of bloopers of like the thing tipping the glass for him, and he's like,
There's also like, what isn't in the first film the tray scene is like 150 takes.
it's 130 takes. Yeah.
Yeah,
So like
Amazing.
Sam Raimi knew what he was doing.
See, and now that would just all be CGI.
Yeah, that's
No,
true.
that
That
would
would
be all
All the
CGI.
Doc Ock arms in the new movie are all CGI, which again, that makes sense. It's 21st
you know,
century.
going back to the train scene in the first movie, I was like, damn, that's right. He actually caught all that stuff. And it's
Yeah.
like, that's right. It took well over 100 takes, and then a bunch of the stuff with the arms. It's like, this is 90% of this is real.
Yeah.
That's what I love about this. I mean, there are times like Brand, you were mentioning how, and you can tell between a CGI suit and a real suit. That definitely happened in the third movie and in this one as well. But it's still not bad. That's why I love about it.
Not at all.
The special effects in this movie hold up kind of. I don't know if this is a if this is a good comparison or not, but Jurassic Park. The CGI, I mean, you can kind of tell it's CGI, but the CGI is still really damn
Spider-Man
good.
2 holds up better than all the prequels.
Mm.
All easy. 100% easy.
There's certainly a lot less special effects in them.
Yes.
Because those movies are like 90%
All CGI.
There's a lot of that CG.
What prequels are you talking about?
The Star Wars prequels.
Star Wars
Oh,
prequels.
The only prequels. Sorry, that we talk about. Are we talking about The Hobbit? Who talks about The Hobbit?
the only film franchise that is collectively known as the prequels.
Just making sure.
But yeah,
okay.
it is because there's so few CGI shots and it's used sparingly. And this goes back to like what we talked about, like, you compare like Davy Jones to something modern, and the difference is really just time. Like they had the time back then to work on them. They were working on them through production. They had a directing hand guiding them. They had a clear vision.
And they've talked about, like, with Jurassic Park, when you have like less CGI shots, like why does the CGI in Jurassic Park, even when it shows up, it looks better than like just picking a random shot out of like Jurassic World in the CGI department? And it's because like they were only having like 140 frames of CGI in Jurassic Park relatively to like thousands that will appear in a more modern film. And like by seeing that difference, like you recognize where the artists are able to just put so much time and effort into those specific frames, make sure that those frames just pop and sing. And Spider-Man 2 also has the benefit of things.
I just
like
watched the Corridor
Same
Crew
with Spider-Man.
thing about Jurassic Park, and the thing they did is they built a model of a T-Rex, and then they lit it properly, did everything so they know what the actual lighting would look like. So when they made the CG thing, they had a reference. And instead now everything is just CGI now. So
well, CGI without like, it's all secondhand, like in post, and like nobody trying to do the work on
like
the front
Jurassic
end.
Park. That set, all that's a set. The only thing that's fake is a dinosaur. Now everything would be fake.
And here's what I am saying is that we would have much better CGI to look at if these animators were given the time that they need. And the thing is, they're not. They're beholden to ridiculous standards to get movies out on time. And sometimes it works out. We get some good CGI sometimes, but like other times, like sometimes it's good enough. Which just has to be it for them. Yeah. And that has more to do with the CG industry and less to do with just filmmaking.
Yeah, that's bad business stuff.
That's true. And also I think it's just, we would benefit more from like, just because we can do it in CGI doesn't mean we should just let's not even bother trying to do it in like practical. Like there are some things where like maybe that didn't need to be CGI. Maybe we could have just done the work and put in the day and made the practicals work for that. I think that we, in general, it's gotten too simple to just be like, we'll just CGI that thing in, like, rather than like, I mean, like, it's the blasé feeling of like Cats, right? Where they're like, just have them in their regular clothes and then make them cats.
Yeah, screw the animators, right?
Have them in hoodies. Who gives a shit? Like, it's that kind of cavalierness about not even trying to like give them anything to work with, like what you were just saying, like having the model as a reference point, like not even trying to like, even if they're going to do CG, give them a helping guide in the shots, just like
final thing about the train, like the finale with Tobey on it, just acting his damn ass off.
Phil Lamar.
Phil Lamar's there. Chloe Deschanel's there. She's in actually both Spider-Man movies and cameos. I love like the people carrying him, like, we won't tell nobody, don't worry, Spider-Man.
I like that bit where it's like, we won't tell nobody. And it's like, you don't even know who this is.
No, but he's a white dude with blue eyes.
I think Forrest, friend of the podcast, Forrest, he'll come up again at some point, and you'll see him in our Hawkeye discussion. He brought up a good point, because we were talking about Spider-Man stuff the other night, and that is even more impactful, I think, with time, because by modern standards, like, it doesn't matter that they don't know who he is. Someone would have taken a cell phone video of him
in the 21st century.
Like somebody would have done that, and like it does make it more impactful that, like, it does mean something, that like they're not just going to try and like
rat him out,
find a way. Like you could go to the police. You can go to Jameson. You could give a description where somebody sketches out his face. You could do it.
Yeah.
You could eventually draw the connections, figure out who Spider-Man is.
You'll have, if you want him, you'll have to go through all of us. Okay.
Yeah. That was a good scene. Even when they're like bring Spider-Man in, of course, birth of another meme. Careful, he's a hero. And they're laying him down, and they're all like, "Wow, he's just a kid.
He's only 27."
And again, like that's obviously the pinpoint scene of like New York as a character, but it's in the movie and peppered throughout. Like it's the kids with the vegetables line. It's the kids that he saves from the bus.
Even like the cop in New York, yo, I'm gonna tow your car. I don't care.
Yeah, it's all these characters of New York feel like they are present and interacting with the world of Spider-Man rather than just like people living in the background of a world.
Yeah.
Oh my god,
Spider-Man.
like Doc Ock like kidnaps Aunt May, and then like when Aunt May gets saved, the girls are like, "Take me with you, Spider-Man!" Like it's great. Like the city stuff in these Raimi movies is excellent.
I think Rosemary Harris is great in all three of these films, but I think she's at her best in this one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
kills it.
Yeah, when she,
Outside of having one of my favorite scenes in the third one, I think that this is this has some of her best stuff. It's specifically the scene where like I remember like the first time seeing Peter tell her the truth about the day with Uncle Ben.
I was just
And,
about
like-
to say. I was just
and
about
that-
to say that's some damn fine acting.
they're
from her.
both given it. And the way that she just leaves, and then when he comes back and sees her, and she's like, "It's all water under the bridge" or wherever, and she starts talking to him about Spider-Man and like
There's
why
a-
people need Spider-Man.
there's a
I'm like,
hero
this
in
is
all
such
of
a
us.
great, well-written scene, and she's so good at performing like the deep sadness that's underneath something, but not letting it overcome her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's some. There's also so that they did the Spider-Man no more thing in this movie,
Yeah.
and I think they do it exactly as much as they should have.
Yes, I agree.
It does not overstay. It's not a whole thing.
We got the great montage.
I
of him
think
being
this.
happy.
I think this is also the first time where you're really benefited by the decision to make organic webbing. Is all this factor of like Peter not believing he should be or wants to be Spider-Man, meaning that he loses his powers because his powers are all based organically. I think is excellent for that.
Yeah.
I agree.
It's perfect. Like like the headspace of like you lose your powers because like you're dealing with some shit. Like you're depressed right now, bro.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's Kiki's delivery
Oh
service.
yeah, I love
100%.
that the doctor scene is even better in the extended edition because he doesn't just like he like has a full-blown conversation with him, kind of like analyzing like it's more than just him saying like maybe you shouldn't be Spider-Man doing those things. He has like a whole relatable story about like a nightmare he had and like an anxiety thing he has that he shares with Peter, and it being like this is he reveals he's going to therapy. The doctor does, and like relates to him on this level. It's actually a really nice scene. It's really cool. And I agree with you. Like I do think in that context, like it didn't read to me anymore like the doctor knows he's Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Which it weirdly does in the regular cut, I think.
Yeah, it does.
But in the extended edition, like it's very clear that he's just kind of getting back on board with his concept of the premise of the dream. And it's not him being let in on like, oh yeah, you're Spider-Man. Like that doesn't come across the same.
Yeah, man, I like this movie. J.K. Simmons once again. We get his spaceman son.
Space Son.
His space son.
The reason Venom comes in the next movie because that's brilliantly planned out. Great job, guys. You nailed it.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I will say like this movie is about Peter Parker, so it cannot be about Mary Jane. Like she's not given a lot of room to do a lot of character stuff.
Yeah.
It has to all be reactionary to like what Peter's doing. But I do think that like when she gets to do things, it's great.
Yeah.
The whole avenge me part when
Avenge me!
I love it. Like he's because the whole movie like Peter is like Peter
Nobel
Harry,
Prize, Otto.
Yeah. Oh, Harry just is like
He's so good. He's 100% better in this
He's
movie.
putting on his father's suits. He's slicking back his hair.
He wants to be his dad.
He's
so
trying
bad.
to be. He's trying to have.
please.
He's trying to have his energy when he's like talking
I'm
business.
something
with
of a
people.
scientist myself.
Yeah.
And then of course he's like drinking. He's like constant, and he's like, I want to see his face. He's like, oh no. And then
Spider-Man hard on you.
like the whole when Willem Dafoe comes back for that hot second, and he just yells "Avenge me!" and he breaks the glass, and he sees the goblin.
Bro, when I was
hallway.
12 years old and in theater watching that was the hypest I've ever been for anything in my life. Because I knew Spider-Man 3 was going to come and he was going to be the Green Goblin. I was like,
Avenge me!
No, smash! I guess I will.
Yeah, Harry finds out Spider-Man is Peter Parker in this one.
Peter.
I do agree with you also that like my read is that Aunt May it doesn't know but definitely suspects that Peter is Spider-Man in this movie.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Spider-Man 3 seems to walk back away from
100%. No idea what's going on.
But in Spider-Man 2, like my read is that Oh, she definitely thinks he's
Yeah,
Spider-Man.
this viewing, I was like, oh, I think she might have an inkling.
Definitely in this one.
Yeah.
When I was watching that scene at the garage sale or her
Yes,
putting her stuff away,
100%.
it really reminded me of the last scene of the video game
Yes.
where she says, "Take that damn mask off. I want to see my nephew."
Yes.
And
right, the current
Spider-Man
video
game,
the
yeah.
video game ending. Sorry, the current PS4 one. But just seeing this whole thing where she's like, and it's like,
There's a hero in all of us.
I know she doesn't flat say, "I know you're Spider-Man," but it's one of those like, I'm trying to tell you subtextually without exclaiming it to the world.
It's all about the line where she says, like, Danny and I agree. We don't see his picture in the paper anymore.
That's the line
And
that
it's
I'm like, oh!
bro, she definitely at least thinks it.
She almost winked at the camera. Yeah, she's so good. Yeah.
I love her as Aunt May. I like all the Aunt Mays, but this
J-
one's like
J. Jonah Jameson's bit where he's like, he was a hero. I just couldn't see it.
Yeah.
A thief! A thief! He's a thief! He's
because
a vandal!
because it finally affected him personally.
yeah.
A thief!
Okay, so, yeah.
It's like he stole my suit.
The
I want Spider-Man.
precious tritium, the fusion, the first fusion scene's incredible.
Yeah.
Poor Rosie dies with glass.
Oh,
It's awful.
Horrific.
One of the greatest screams in a movie.
I love how this movie starts out with Otto Octavius and Peter Parker. Like at first, I was like, I don't really want to talk to this kid, but it's Harry's buddy.
Oh,
I
yeah.
got it because he's paying the bills. 2 hours later,
no, and
they are bros.
Well, and he, I think it's also smart writing that he also has like a preconceived idea of Peter because of
Brilliant but
Connors.
lazy.
Yeah, brilliant but lazy.
My
Like
favorite
that
line.
adds
Yeah.
a lot to it besides just like Harry brought him. It's him having like a concept of what kind of person he is,
Because
and then
Connors-
reading into him.
Because Connor sets it up as like,
He's a good friend of mine.
Octavius is a friend of mine.
Yeah,
And he clearly cares about Peter to know like this guy's a genius, but he just won't apply himself.
And
Yeah.
he said, and he says to, and he goes, and when he first meets, he's like, Peter Parker, right? Brilliant but lazy.
I think
and then
Connors.
that callback at the end,
Yes.
is so brilliant. to
Brilliant
me.
but lazy. Yes, exactly. Connors is a very good bit character presence in this film. He does a lot of good, important work
Yeah.
in fleshing out Peter's world and what he's going through without like overshadowing anything.
Mhm.
He only adds to a lot of story, both for Peter and contextually because of Otto.
Yeah.
I thought he's used incredibly well in this.
Yeah, I do too, because you kind of see him as like the disappointed mentor figure. that
Yes,
you-
absolutely.
and you get that impression the moment they see each other, and then you see how proud he is that when Peter's in class, and
Yeah.
I think that's some really good stuff. The callback to the brilliant but lazy line that Doc Ock has when he's coming to his senses,
Yeah.
Mhm.
is
After he got his world rocked.
yeah, he's just kind of sitting there, and he sees now why Peter is that way, and he
Yeah.
understands Peter in a different way. And you get that just with that line is so cool.
And again, like Peter, like regurgitating the thing about like, if you're intelligent, it's a privilege. And Doc's like, you're right. And I've become the person that I said I never wanted to be.
Yeah.
Like, it's such good superhero
Like
shit.
the whole part in the beginning where it's like, look, if you're intelligent, you have to use it for the better of my can. It's like,
And-
that is such a good line. That's such
and-
a good thing.
And in that same moment, like bringing back up that like, sometimes we have to give up what we want the most, which is all Peter has been doing through this movie is what he's been pushing himself through, what he's recognizing. He's trying to impart that, like, I understand, like, I had to be this and I have to give up things I want too. I love that. I'm going to reference back to that moment when he pulls Otto out later after we've talked about Spider-Man 3, but I do really love that they flip Otto, that Otto gets to become the good man. I love him saying, I will not die a monster.
Yeah.
I really love that. It was powerful the first time I saw it. It remains powerful today.
So just to acknowledge the chat, Grayson's very upset we mentioned the game. Sorry. Scott Melville in the chat says, just I want Spider-Man.
he was that's a buddy of mine. He was messaging me because I put the I want Spider-Man scene from 2 on my Instagram story.
Oh my
and he
god,
was
maybe the best shot in the movie where it's like I want Spider-Man, then it cuts to Spider-Man swinging through the city, and then it zooms out into Doc's glasses.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh!
Beautiful.
Every
So-
time it gets me.
And
so good.
and then Jackson
Again, like incredible transitions throughout.
and then Jackson's in the chat, your former roommate.
Oh hey,
Um,
bud.
I get a lot of crap for this, but I think Spider-Man 2 is right there with the original Superman and The Dark Knight as a contender for best superhero movie of all time.
You
I
should
don't,
have crap for that.
I don't understand who's giving you crap for that. Find new friends.
Yep. No, we're with you, baby.
It's definitely the best.
Yes, it is one of the best
It
superhero
is
movies of all
so-
time.
It is so good.
I
Still
found,
holds up today
like,
too.
In the first movie, I find like Mary Jane, she's cute, but like she's just kind of like a cute girl. And this one, like, I think she's got the charm. I see why Peter likes her. It's like she's doing Broadway stuff. Like it's all there. And like, yo, man, he loves this model so much, but he's Spider-Man. He can't love her.
She also does have personality and agency. Like she's trying to force like, please, like just tell me what you want to tell me.
She wants.
Like
she wants him so bad, but
she knows. Like she is 95. She's also like Aunt May. She is 95% confident. She knows Peter Parker is Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
That's why she does the like I need a kiss thing. Yep. That's why when they like early on in the film when they first see each other for the first time in this movie with the birthday thing.
Yeah.
And then they're talking after, and she's like, "Do you have something you want to tell me, Peter?"
Yeah.
Like she's trying to get him to admit it because she's like, I really like she's
putting in all the work, but he's a nerdy white guy, and like I get that. Like I have no confidence. I will not make you 5. I will not be the 5%.
Right.
You're the 95.
And I think it's good because it adds a lot of like weight to everything Mary Jane is saying, because Mary Jane's also saying like, I'm pretty sure you are Spider-Man. I still need you to be able to show up for me and be able to count on you as a friend. And that just hasn't been happening.
And then she's dating someone, but it's almost more like a test.
Yes.
And then unfortunately, like she's so let down, she's gonna marry someone for the
herself,
rest of her life and be miserable.
Oh yeah, great scene with her talking to her co-star in the show. They go out talking about the engagement. It's an extended edition scene. It's really excellent. It fleshes out like how she's feeling about Jameson in a really great way and what she thinks about Peter at that moment.
Basically saying like, do you really love this guy? Do you really want to spend the rest of your life with this guy?
She's like, I don't think you do.
Yeah. Quick correction. It's actually Borden Annoyed Jackson on the chat.
That's what I was gonna say.
He's on a different YouTube channel than is Borden Annoyed. He says Borden Annoyed Jackson here. On my other YouTube stream, and yes, my friends are dummies.
True. It's all true.
You
all
know
of it.
That.
The score is still great. The Doc Ock theme is fantastic. Love it.
I'm gonna run through some talking points. I really love the weight of things, how they are piled up in the beginning, the opening of the film, just like hitting you with the pizza, the bugle, Connors, like it's all just so piled on, so beautifully, well put together, all of it, that he forgets his own birthday in the mix of it. Incredible. Like they do such a good job of putting Peter through the shit in this movie. Really great.
You're fired, Chief. You can't fire him. Wait, can you do photography?
Alfred Molina.
Oh, real quick. Something I like about this movie is Peter brings in real photography for the first time. He wants to become a real photographer.
Oh, yeah.
He wants to advance as a person. But Jameson's like, this is crap. I want Spider-Man. I'm like, you're ruining his dreams.
And that's what he gives him, like, Spider-Man.
Fine, here's Spider-Man because I need rent. Yeah.
Rent.
Molina's great from beat one. The absolutely brilliant orchestration of moments like the one where Peter watches Mary Jane leave the theater and the cop cars go by.
Mm-hmm.
And like just giving you everything wordlessly in that moment where he's watching her walk out and the cop cars just like, you don't even really see them. You hear the sirens and you see the lights, but like they just go by and like, you know what's going on. You get it all in that moment watching him do it. I love the elevator scene. It's so good.
Very reminiscent of when I was playing the Spider-Man game, and I'm just trying to go to the main objective, and then cop lights just flash on. I was like, gotta help him because I'm Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Rosie's death, which we alluded to, like the way it's filmed, the tragedy of it is so good.
Yeah.
Let's see here.
I love the inhibitor chip. He makes a.
I really love drunk Harry confronting Peter at the party, and then immediately after he's being told that he was an empty seat for Mary Jane, you're just an empty seat to me. Drunk Harry confronting him, and then I'm announcing my engagement, and Peter's just like, "Oh my
life sucks.
My life is horrible. I want to die."
God. It's just so many strides.
Where's that black suit? Jesus.
Yeah. I need that symbiote. Venom, where you at?
All the transitions are still top tier.
Mm-hmm.
I really love that scene between the Doctor and Peter. I'm glad we remembered that. Peter's imagination of talking to Uncle Ben leading into the No More thing, I think was a really good. The fact that like
Peter,
when he thinks of when he imagines talking to Uncle Ben, he imagines the last time he saw him. Like alive. I think that's so good. I think that's such a good representation of like, sure, it's easy to do, but like it is the moment that lives so strong. Not only that, like a moment where he carries so much guilt. About
responsibility.
That he takes himself back there to have that moment. I think is really strong. And that like to him being Spider-Man is a promise to Uncle Ben. I really love that beat in the film.
Am I not supposed to have what I want? What I need? You want some cake, Peter?
Great needle drops as always.
Ordinary.
Daniel Day Kim is in this movie.
Hell yeah, for 5
I
seconds.
did not.
Yes.
Well, we were
Successful fusion, Doctor.
We were talking about earlier about like Octavia Spencer in the first one. Daniel Day Kim's in this movie, and just
Is that Fire Lord Ozai, right?
yeah, he's gonna be
Yeah.
Fire Lord.
Oh,
Ozai.
spicy.
And then one more thing. So at the very, I just decided to skip through credits because I probably knew there was, but I was like, you know what, I might be forgetting something just in case, it had a little Caesar sizzle, but it doesn't. But I get to the end. Michael Bublé sings the original Spider-Man theme at the very end of the credits for Spider-Man 2, and it's really damn good.
Oh man, I love the bubbles.
The moment when Peter saves the little girl, Sans powers from the fire.
Oh
yeah.
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 Really great.
Oh, and then some poor soul.
Some
didn't get
poor
off the
soul.
pole.
Like it still
Oh.
wasn't enough.
The little girl tries to help him.
It's
Yes,
so
One
cute.
moment.
I really,
So good.
love that. It looks great.
Yeah.
The way they filmed it.
There's
it looks
so much
incredible.
fire. Like man, it's real impressive.
I really I enjoy it. I think it's very silly. The I'm back moment to the my back.
Oh yeah.
My back.
Real quick, real quick fun fact. Tobey Maguire wasn't supposed to be. He's supposed to be in Spider-Man 2. He wanted $25 million, or 10% of the gross of the box office, right? So they hired Jake Gyllenhaal. Jake Gyllenhaal started training. Jake Gyllenhaal was going to be in Spider-Man 2. Tobey came back saying, "Actually, I don't need that much money. Can I please be Spider-Man again?" We almost had Jake Gyllenhaal. This is true. He was going to be Spider-Man.
I think I heard this. Yeah.
Now he's Mysterio. It's a fun world.
I mean, he got to be in a Spider-Man movie eventually.
I'm
20
glad
years later.
I'm glad it kept being Tobey because I think Tobey fits these movies.
He fits like the dweeby so well.
Yeah, it's good that we were able to follow a one character throughout, and like, oh man. So okay, I want to say, go ahead. If you, I got a
real
long
quick,
thing I wanna
real
say.
quick, like spinning off from the Jake Gyllenhaal comment, like Tobey Maguire is I'm not calling him an unattractive man. I think he's attractive, but like he feels like real world attractive.
Yeah, he's a
not
regular...
like movie star pretty. He's never felt that way, and that helps him so much in this because it makes him feel like this is something Andrew Garfield.
That's honestly
against him.
Yeah.
Is that he just can't be the dork loser.
Peter Parker
like,
is not supposed to be hot.
He can't be the everyman.
Yeah.
But like Tobey Maguire really can capture that energy, and I think Jake Gyllenhaal wouldn't have been able to capture that.
He's a good-looking dude. Yeah.
So Mag says that the landlord's daughter is a good friend of his.
No way!
That's awesome.
That's
dude,
very cool.
Very charming lady. Brings milk and cake to Peter. What a lovely lady.
And
one of my favorite bit parts in both this and the third film.
Yeah.
And Grayson says, I felt bad for her. She hardcore got friend zoned.
It's true.
Yeah.
Especially in that third one. He
You
treated her.
can tell that she has a crush on him.
Oh,
and
100%.
I feel bad for Ursula.
Hi, Pete. Oh.
There is a thing about early 2000s movies that used to be a thing before we got into the point of like the never-ending franchise, and I'm not just saying for like the MCU, but just like in general, like character arcs continue on throughout multiple movies. But it's really cool to see just how like the kind of the forgotten filmmaking of a blockbuster filmmaking. Where like, here's a character arc, cool. Here's the next character arc.
Yeah.
Cool. Here's the next character arc. And so like each film tackles something different. The first one is learning responsibility. The second one learning to live with the responsibility.
Yeah.
I think that was they each operate as a single unit that don't need each other. But are enhanced by existing together.
True. To extrapolate on your point, because I actually do see this a whole in these films. Jumping to the third one for a hot second, it's like Peter gets his powers in the first one. He's learning difficulties, trying to balance his life with the powers in the second one. And the third one, he thinks he has it all figured out, and it goes straight to his head. Especially with all the drama that he causes with Mary Jane by letting Gwen Stacy kiss him during the ceremony.
Oh, we'll get to there.
We'll definitely get to there. But you're absolutely right, because in this movie, it's like, wow, this is like kind of like I could definitely relate to him trying to juggle all these things and still live a life.
There's not enough time for anybody.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then the third one, it's like, damn, he thinks he's hot shit.
It's crazy.
Because
This movie's just Kiki's delivery service.
Yeah. And then watching the third one, he's like, he thinks he's such hot shit because it really hit when he's right before he swings in. He's like, they love me. They really love me. It's like,
let's finish Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, let's finish Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
But I want to say I completely see where you're coming from,
Yeah,
dude.
I love the ending of this movie. It reminds me so much, and it's obviously a reference to The Graduate, of Mary Jane leaves her own wedding, which is a wedding she did not want to be at. So it's fair. She goes to Peter Parker, and she's like, listen, Peter, I know shit's going to get whacked, but I love you. You love me. We should just try this and see how it goes. and they say yes to it, and then Peter becomes Spider-Man. He runs off, and she's just sitting in the doorway, pensive.
Oh, it's even framed like The Graduate with the
Yeah.
door frame.
And like she's not smiling. She's like, I guess
you
this
see
is my life.
you see in the reflection Spider-Man swinging off.
Beautiful. It's beautiful.
Beautiful shot.
I like it to end your movie on like not a big action scene. It's like on your female lead, like in a kind of like, I guess this is my life.
I mean, it kind of ends. It does like it does end with him swinging through New York. The helicopters are following him and everything. But still, I get what you're saying. And also,
well, the last shot, Ben, though,
is Mary Jane.
Because you come away from the helicopter swinging and you see him,
and she's just like
just off in the distance in the reflection, and she's leaning against it. The last shot is her looking kind of like,
you're right.
Okay.
You're right.
I love
also, a lot of really good reflection shots. Like you were saying, like the reflection of Doc Ock's glasses, the one in the whatchamacallit, the one in the window was Peter swinging away.
when Rosie was dying. Yeah.
A lot of good stuff in this movie. A lot of good reflections throughout all the movies, actually.
I love this movie.
I'm so glad I watched it again.
This movie is why I'm scared for No Way Home.
That last shot is incredible. What an incredibly powerful choice. Because it basically says that like there really isn't an easy answer to everything we put forth in this movie. Like it's kind of gonna be a mixed bag. Like that's what it is.
That's what life
Sometimes
is.
Joel McHale is just a sleazy
Which I
banker.
think is like you could have just as easily ended it the same way you ended the first one with Spider-Man just going off to do the thing.
Yeah.
And we could have ended it with the helicopter shot, but it's because you come back to Mary Jane, and Mary Jane doesn't even look like she's like happy entirely. She's she's complicated.
If
and
you
like
think about what she just left like a famous astronaut at the altar to go be with someone who can't dedicate his entire life to her because he's saving crime and he could die at any day. And I'm just like, wow, I really just chose this, didn't I? Wow.
But love conquers
Love
all.
conquers all, or does it?
And then
Spider-Man 3.
And that scene, it gave me and all my friends all the evidence we need. Like he's gonna become Venom in the next Spider-Man movie. Never mentioned again.
What?
Yeah.
I'm confused.
Okay, so the symbiote comes from space, right?
Yes.
And he's
I see what he's saying. He's talking about Jameson.
I'm talking about
Jameson.
Jameson's
Okay.
son.
Oh
Okay.
yeah. The setup that we deserved.
Yeah, the set that we
that they
deserved.
set up and
That
didn't
was
do.
right there in your face. It's like he gotta be Venom because he's pissed and he's gonna find out that Peter stole Mary Jane from him, and he's gonna get
This
the
just goes
symbiote.
to show you.
We talked about that.
This just goes to show you that Venom was brought in like so late into the game that like the way that he's brought in is through he just shows up in the park randomly. Like wow, what a setup for your major villain. Wow.
Sam Raimi like very like blatantly has spoken to like no interest in Venom.
Yes.
He did not think there was anything interesting that he could do with Venom.
If you look at all of the villains, they're all like duality of man villains, and Venom is just a big monster.
and so like the film Venom is not the only problem in this film.
No.
But it is a major issue for many reasons. But I think that if this movie had just settled on Sandman and maybe have the goblins,
even Harry, I think is good.
Even Harry, and so like you have some of the Harry.
I think
you
you see a clear, strong film of Sandman and Harry.
You cut the Venom
It should
stuff,
be both, but no Venom.
Yeah.
Yes, and I think that's because I was watching this movie and I always remember kind of being bad, but I find myself always forgetting how much I'm into the Sandman plotline. I like it so much that it's gone for most of the movie, and I hate it.
Mm-hmm.
I hate how long we're gone from Sandman.
Yes, rewatching this, I don't think this is a bad movie. I think there's a lot of bad stuff in it. When rewatching it, like compared to 1 and 2, like nothing could ever be those movies again, right? But like the Venom stuff is really just like the worst stuff. Like the Sandman stuff is on par with some of the other villain stuff in this trilogy.
I think so.
And I think Spider-Man 3 is disappointing because like it's not that it's like, oh, it couldn't be Spider-Man 1 and 2 again. The thing is like you see it could have been. Yeah. It could have been. But it got messed up.
Like the second we saw I will once again, I have a lot of nostalgia. I have a lot of core memories tied with these Spider-Man films.
Yeah.
I will never forget walking out of the Point of Hills AMC out of a movie and I saw the poster for the first time and I flipped out. I'm like, holy crap.
The trailer dropped a year before this movie came out.
Oh yeah.
Not only are we gonna get Black Suit Spider-Man, we're gonna get Venom. I was so excited. And then I saw the trailers, I saw the Sandman, and as a kid, I'm like, no, I don't want the Sandman, I want Venom. Now as an adult, I'm like, no, I want Sandman, I don't want Venom.
Yeah.
Thomas Hayden Church delivers a really good performance.
Yes,
as Sandman.
Yes, he does.
I think like I said, if he was just the main villain of this movie,
he is very much a 40s gangster character adopted to the time period. Like he is designed in that classic sense.
He could also be Hammerhead.
Like everything Thomas Hayden Church is giving. Yes, he could. Everything Thomas Hayden Church is giving is that like that old like, you know, grizzled criminal who did it for like just to get by what I needed kind of thing. Like he's got that exact energy going. He's got that exact presence going.
He's like muscle, really just like pure muscle. Yeah.
Yeah. He's never been that stacked again in his life. Like he's great. I agree. Like I wish that Sandman was in this movie more.
Like his motivation of like he's got a sick daughter. Like it's a good motivation for a villain, sure.
It's really hard because this movie tries to juggle so much.
Yeah.
And it doesn't come together as well as it needs to.
Yeah.
Because there's probably 3 movies in this movie that they're trying to do. And
I would argue too, but go ahead.
And when you're losing when Black Suit Spider-Man quote unquote kills Sandman, and then Sandman shows up again, you're like, oh right, there's a Sandman movie here.
So the editor's cut helps a little bit.
Okay.
We'll
it cuts
admit,
15 minutes. Yeah.
Well, it cuts 15 minutes, but it adds a scene that's not in Spider-Man 3 regularly, which is that after he gets quote unquote killed, Sandman washes into the bay and he comes up into a park. Guess who happens to be at that park? His daughter.
Oh.
So he turns himself into a gigantic
like
sand
a 10-foot sandcastle
for her. And then she like enjoys it, and then she and her mom leave, and when they leave, he turns back to himself and he says, I swear I'm not going to let him separate me from you ever again.
Oh.
And it helps to motivate why he would agree to join Venom later in the film. It still doesn't sell me on it. I think that's a terrible, bad characterization thing. I'm like, this criminal you've set up Sandman to be up to this point in the film, I don't think he would join Venom. I don't think he'd be okay with Venom doing what Venom's doing.
He's not out for murder. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
He's the motivation in the theatrical cut of the film certainly seems to be like, Spider-Man was a jerk to me and I want to kill him.
Right. And in the editor's cut, they try and take it more in the direction of, I
have a goal.
Spider-Man was willing to murder me, and he at least vocalizes that, and like I need to make sure that I can be around for you.
Yeah. I also have a hard time. I won't say that I just flat out don't care about this stuff, but because I feel like that might be too harsh, but I don't give a shit about the Gwen Stacy crap in this movie.
That's fair. Yeah.
I just lose all interest in the Gwen Stacy plotline.
It's interesting because I find most, well, the further we get, the less I like it. But like I do like the drama between Mary Jane and Peter a lot. Because Peter is just so full of himself, and Mary Jane's just going through it, and he does not get it. He's just being a bad boyfriend right now. Yeah. And the Gwen Stacy stuff adds to that in a really dramatic way, but I just don't think the execution is fully there all the time, especially with Gwen herself. But like all the ideas are there that are really like Peter does not realize the mess he is making just by being happy. Yeah. And it's so fascinating. All the stuff is so good. It's just like literally there's so much stuff around it.
See, that's the thing. Like you say that, and like that's all good and I'm into that, but the execution of it is just not there for me.
Yeah.
The execution of the character drama in the second film we talked about is so well done and I'm so invested, but here I'm not.
Until Gwen Stacy shows up, like all the stuff with Mary Jane leaving Broadway and Peter not like listening to her at all. Yeah. That's all good. That's all good shit. Yeah. It's when Gwen Stacy gets involved in like the stuff at like the diner and Gwen Stacy like kissing him. Or not kissing him, sorry.
That kiss. Okay,
it's awful.
Am I alone in this? That kiss doesn't work on a narrative level.
It ruins his character.
It's the most uncharacteristic thing Peter Parker has done in this entire trilogy.
Yeah,
he is such a wife guy. His whole life's been about Mary Jane. There's no way in hell he would kiss another woman, especially with the kiss that he did with Spider-Man.
Even with his like massive ego inflated head, like the fact that he's the person who like says, "Go ahead, lay one on me." I'm like, this is not Peter.
Peter Parker would never cheat. He is not a cheater.
I 100% agree, because every Peter Parker or addition to Peter Parker I know, if he's whoever partner he's with, be it Gwen Stacy, be it Mary Jane, he's with that person.
He's a good dude.
Well, you can just go to this franchise, like we talked about, like Peter Parker, like it's not Spider-Man and Peter Parker, it's always Peter Parker,
and it's always been Mary Jane.
It's always been Mary Jane and Peter Parker. And so like when Peter puts on the Spider-Man suit, he's still Peter Parker.
Yeah,
we're still following Peter Parker. So I don't believe that there's any world where Peter Parker would be like, Spider-Man will kiss whoever they want.
Right. And like the only way that, and you'd have to move it to later in the movie, but like the only way I would believe it is if he's wearing the black suit.
And he wasn't.
Yeah, he wasn't.
If he was wearing the black suit, I'd be like, okay, like I get it. I can get it on board with this because Black Suit Peter is Peter's id getting out of control.
Yeah.
And even they could have done something where, what if Gwen Stacy like snuck a kiss on him? And like Peter had nothing,
Sure.
like, and he's like she very quickly did a thing, and like Peter's like, I didn't want to do that, and like that's a better counter instead of like you're the instigator, you are the cheater here. Like
there's this thing where like Peter can't figure out why Mary Jane is upset, and I'm like, really, dude?
Here's the other thing I hate though, Mary Jane kissing Harry, and the
that's,
reason
that's actually bad.
Here's the reason I hate it. I hate that like the ass backwards logic of writing it to happen because it doesn't work. And by doing so, all you are doing is saying like, well, we had to make them even. And like, no, bullshit.
No.
Mary Jane doesn't have to sink down because Peter did.
Yeah, that lessens her character too. Like she doesn't need to retaliate.
Everything about Mary Jane and Harry doing that whole bit just doesn't work for me. Harry's amnesia sucks because and here's the only reason it sucks. Like, I don't really have a problem with it I don't have a problem with it as an idea of how it could work into these characters and their dynamic and everything. My problem is that Harry's amnesia lasts for about 40 minutes of this movie, and it doesn't further his character. It doesn't further Peter's relationship with Harry, nor does it further Mary Jane's relationship with Harry.
It doesn't influence his hero turn at all.
No, all it does is put Harry on the back burner so we don't have to think about him coming after him as Goblin.
Makes Peter a bad guy because he's the one who put him in that coma.
I'm like, it would have been much better if Harry had just lost the fight and then decided to go after Peter a different way by like manipulating his world around him so that like sometimes, Peter's the one screwing up, but sometimes Harry's making it worse.
You could honestly cut all the amnesia stuff and just have Harry just be like shitty in the background, and everything would be fine.
Because
Harry threatens Mary Jane to break up with Peter. I'm like, that shouldn't be a threat.
No, but
she should just do it.
Because it should be what it should be is that Harry learns that Mary Jane knows that Peter Parker's Spider-Man, but not that he's the Goblin. And he uses that. And he uses that to his advantage. And if that were what we were doing instead, and he leverages against Mary Jane because of it, that would be better. That would be better than like the way they go with the amnesia route. It doesn't add anything.
Yeah. The other thing that, like, we're talking about Venom, but we have to talk about Eddie Brock Jr., sir. I feel so bad for Topher Grace. I really like that guy.
That character's written terribly. He's
the
nothing.
Absolute worst choice to make your Venom character just a anti-Peter Parker. Because he's just Peter Parker, but not as funny, not as cool, just more of an asshole. And it's just like, there's nothing fun about watching this character at all. I don't think.
And again, it's a villain turn because Peter was a jerk to him.
Yeah. Although like you want religion, go to church. Like, I do like that. He ends up at a church. Like, that's fine. That's all cool. But like the character himself,
the character
just lame.
I just feel I completely forgot about the whole when Eddie Brock tells Captain Stacy he's dating his daughter, then they see each other at the ceremony. It's like
one date.
The amazing thing is like, dude, we just had coffee. It's like, oh,
he's a loser like Peter Parker. That's
and at the same time, like even if that's the narrative he's created for himself, he was also hitting on Betty Brant at the same time earlier in the film. So like he's just a piece of shit. So like you can't latch on to anything with him. There's no way to feel like bad about what happens with him.
He's just somebody who wants like the #1 spot, but like there's no real character to that.
There's nothing to him. All his lines are bad.
Yeah.
I feel bad. I do feel bad for Topher Grace. Like it's a nothing character doing a nothing presence just to get to Venom.
I don't know if this is true, but I was watching like some video essay, and apparently my spider sense is tingling, if you know what I mean, is him improving, and I just can't believe he would ever do something that terrible.
No, thank you.
I do not believe they would allow him to improv that. There has to be a line that they wrote.
Ben brought up something that I actually find really funny. Earlier he talked about the desk. I think the desk is the desk gag with J. Jonah
Yes,
Jameson.
great gag. Great gag.
Very funny.
Not that one.
Not that one.
Not that one. It goes.
He's really calm in this one. Really, I love it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, just thank you.
Or then he's trying to yell. I was like, "Are you serious? This is your wife blood pressure."
You can tell my wife to. Thank you.
Thank you.
I love J.K.
Oh, sorry. There's one part of Spider-Man 2 I forgot to mention when Robbie Robinson is holding Spider-Man.
Oh yeah, that's a
and
great
he's like,
shot.
oh, I think Robbie knows he's Spider-Man because there's a line at the beginning. He's like, I heard Spider-Man was there. I'm like, Robbie, do you
he's
know?
looking right
Do you
at
know
him. Like,
Robbie?
yeah.
Character.
I think they do a good job of like there are characters who definitely like have good reason to suspect, and they lean into like the subtext. Like they definitely have thought of it.
Yeah,
they definitely considered is Peter Parker Spider-Man. They don't know.
But they got a hunch.
But they're definitely wondering it.
Yeah. I just thought because I like that character a lot. Yeah.
Meg says, I do like the message Venom makes referencing the 90s cartoon style, title style.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Like come and get like.
Oh yeah, come and get us,
Spider-Man,
Spider-Man.
save him if you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the font of the '90s cartoon.
And Grayson says, I wasn't really into the potential love triangle that wasn't really in character yet. We agree. Bruce Campbell's very funny in this movie, though.
Yeah,
I like.
romance.
I'm
I am
trying
French.
I really am French.
Trying to think which is my favorite Bruce Campbell.
It's
thing.
this one.
Actually, I
It's
think it's
this
the
one.
first
I-
one.
It could be any of them, really.
I mean, I like his appearance as the wrestler announcer, and
yeah.
I do like his appearance at the theater. He's a real piece of shit, but I think there's something so good about the comedy, the physical comedy of him constantly thinking
back
he's
and
being
forth,
summoned
yeah.
for the ring, and
Yeah,
he's
he's
like, go.
And he's all mad at the servers, and
Yes.
he's like, no, shoot. And he's like, okay, we got this.
Again,
Can we
like-
play this song? Oh,
like-
like their favorite.
I think that is a really good scene. Again, even the Gwen Stacy scene, like that scene works with her in it because like Peter is so oblivious. He's about to propose to the woman of his dreams, and he has no idea what she's going through. So he not only is about to propose, he also has the song of the Broadway play that she's not in
Yeah.
about to play.
And
He is so out of it. It just drives me crazy.
and you can have that scene without the kiss.
yes,
You can still
absolutely.
have- there's,
Yes,
a, there's a
exactly.
version of that scene that exists without that
The
kiss.
hands, like she had her fingers all over you, works
Oh,
just
yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Man, I'm really glad.
And that
I
makes more
watched-
sense as something that Peter's oblivious of.
Oh yeah, totally.
100%.
Because she's all like rubbing his shoulders. She's like, yeah, my lab partner is like looking at Mary Jane, and she's like, I'm gonna take him from
Bro,
you.
like it is relatable in a way of like Peter's like, wait a minute, what's happening here? Like she's just my lab partner. Oh my god, what is happening right now? Like he is so good in that
But
moment.
when you have the context of the kiss, it's like harder to
Yes,
accept him.
It
by.
is,
Yeah.
yes.
Mhm.
I agree.
Speaking of like, because we talked about Bruce Campbell. Speaking of like great
I
small
am
appearances,
French.
the landlord has a excellent moment with Peter in
Oh,
this one
yeah.
where he gets shouted at by Peter, and he's like, "He's good boy.
Why he
He
must
must be in some
wrong.
kind of trouble."
Yeah.
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 I
Fix
love
this
that.
damn
I
door.
love that.
Mr.
At
Dick
that
Fix.
moment.
It's the same reason why I like the Goblin Jameson sequence. Like these people have been antagonists to Peter Parker, but like
They have heart. They have good
they
hearts.
have good hearts.
Yeah.
They like the thing about everyone in these movies is that it doesn't matter if like Peter Parker doesn't pay his rent or I'm a hard ass. Like
Yeah.
I like this kid.
Yeah.
Right.
This kid is a good kid.
Right.
Like because they know they can push him. Like they could be nice to him. Like he's late on his rent because like I can make fun of him for it. Like
It pulls on those emotional heartstrings in a pretty big way where when you feel that where he's just like he's good boy. I
Something's wrong.
really appreciate that. I'm really glad that moment is in there.
Yeah.
I think it does add something to the movie overall.
Mhm.
The Goblin Bomb makes an appearance again in a really fun way. Honestly, I think
I'm gonna put some dirt in your eye.
when he getting ready to when Harry throws the bomb and then Spider-Man without even thinking
Whips it back.
Whips it back. It's such a good moment.
Really, like this is the one where there's an over reliance on CGI and it shows, and some of the CGI definitely does not hold up.
The opening action scene is like as an idea is really cool, and sometimes it is cool. to
Super
watch,
rubbery,
but a lot of the time it feels like you're watching a 3D ride.
like a
Yeah.
PlayStation cutscene.
I could act in this movie. I feel is like the most egregious with the CGI, and what I mean by that is like I could definitely notice when I'm looking at a CGI Peter and I'm looking at a physical Peter.
There's so much
Especially with the black suit. Like
yeah.
when he first puts on the black suit and it's the big reveal, and then it's him. It's like you can tell like the textures are like it's like blatantly out there. It's
Yeah.
like damn,
So
you
much
could-
more reliance on CGI.
I
in this
do
one.
really,
Yeah.
I do, however, really like when he's ripping the Venom symbiote off of him. I
Oh,
think
yeah,
that's
that
that
is
was
cool.
really cool.
looks
They put-
great.
they put a lot of money into making like the movement of the symbiote and the its tendrils and its
And
pieces look good.
the Sandman technology, like they developed for this movie of like the particle technology. Insane. Like
Yeah.
looks fantastic still.
There- There's another pumpkin bomb moment that I want to shout out real quickly, Ben. And it's the one that destroys Venom and Brock.
Sure.
Is also just a really good kind of visceral moment of the pumpkin bomb.
And you see you see his skeleton explode in
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, that was the first time I noticed that.
Me
when
too. I
watched
didn't
it.
notice it first. Yeah.
The other thing I was gonna say is for a very hot second, but I loved like the shadow art, like when Peter first gets the symbiote on him.
Yeah.
Like you see the symbiote, you see Venom's face, and then the
oh yeah, you
hand.
see like the face and it turned into the hand.
I thought that was
pretty
really cool, and also even the time. I normally don't like when we don't see Venom and it's Eddie Brock's face peel back.
Yeah.
But
it's the teeth.
It's the
yeah,
teeth.
the
It's the
teeth are. But one thing I do want to give credit to the costume designers, because that's a physical. Because I mean, yeah, there is CGI elements, but then there are shots where you can tell it's a physical headpiece.
Oh, like
and it's
the
a physical
tendrils.
suit.
Yeah.
And props to them because that still looks really good.
Yes, I think the idea of the Venom suit sitting on Eddie in a way where it's like pulled back here, I think is really cool. It's the teeth that bother me. I'm like, there's just no reason to do it. And it looks bad and it throws the whole thing off.
Yeah, the teeth I do not enjoy, but everything else about that costume, it's pretty damn good.
This is the first time, and there's something very specifically interesting about this movie, watching them all three back to back, and it is that you can tell that Spider-Man 1 and 2 are Sam Raimi's movies.
Yeah.
Like regardless of the different, whether he's not leaning too much into his style or whatever, they're Sam Raimi's movies. This was the first time where I was watching this, I was like, I see Sam Raimi's DNA in this, but it's not as prevalent as it was.
Yeah. No. And it's so crazy because he's one of the people who wrote the script for this one.
Yeah.
Because the producers are like, you have to put Venom. He's like, okay, like I'm gonna write the script for this one. Too many elements. Him
and Ivan Raimi, and then Alvin Sargent coming back from the second one.
There's too many cooks in the kitchen. Yeah.
And
Sargent would also work on the Amazing Spider-Man script, by the way.
Interesting.
The thing about this that I think probably because the elements of Spider-Man 4 were in them.
The lizard stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The Sam Raimi-ness is still there, kind of like with the visuals of Venom and some of the stuff with the Thomas Hayden Church, Sandman. But there's such a. This is the first movie that I saw where like I noticed corporate energy.
Yes, sure.
Like this felt like a movie that Sony was what had their hands in.
Yes.
Trying to mold this.
When
movie.
I saw this movie midnight in 2007, I remember this was the first movie I remember seeing being disappointed in, like a big blockbuster. I was like, something's wrong with this one, and I was like 15 or whatever. I'm like, this one wasn't good, guys.
Yeah.
Everyone else like loved it, but now the world's turned.
It was definitely one of those things where we tricked ourselves into liking it, and then after a while, it's like, that wasn't that good.
But now, but now 14 years later, it's not terrible.
It's not terrible, but. One thing I will definitely put against this movie is I definitely felt the length on this one. It's 2 hours and 19 minutes.
I 100%. It's not longer than the first two.
Oh yeah.
But it feels like it is.
It feels so much longer than it is.
Full disclosure, Ryan and I have alluded to it. We did not rewatch the original cut. We will rewatch the editor's cut, which we know cuts like 15 minutes out of the movie. And at the same time also added at least one scene.
It shortens like
so
some of the dancing
a decent
stuff.
chunk is gone.
It shortens some of the Aunt May stuff. It adds the Sandman scene, which is good.
So the length of the theatrical cut, I never felt it in the first two. And the first two I think might be longer, but don't quote me on that. Now, and if they are, they're all around 2:30.
Yeah.
And this one is not the shortest. Might be the shortest, but it's definitely not the longest. And it feels like it is. It feels like a movie that is going on for 3 hours, and not in a good way. Like you're watching. It's honestly, I find this movie to be a bit of a slog.
It is. It is definitely. I don't know if I'd call it a slog. It's just definitely after watching those first two, you're like, oh wow, this definitely is the one that's like.
I think we also are missing a decent chunk of the movie where we're not having it berate on us.
Maybe, yeah.
Definitely. Like, I mean, the first two Spider-Man films, those are fun. They're a ride. It doesn't. I get done with Spider-Man 1. I look at my phone. I'm like, oh wow, that much time has passed. It doesn't feel like that. I'm watching Spider-Man 3. I'm like, can this be over so I can play?
I do.
Pokemon
Again,
finally?
I think the action's really, really good though. Like I think specifically the first black suit side of Spider-Man Sandman fight's brutal. Like if Spider-Man didn't know any better, he is killing somebody in half those fights.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the Sandman fights, both of them are really interesting. And the one that I do like Harry's hero turn. Well, it's not utilized very well.
I like
it's not done very well.
Yeah,
but I like the idea that they are teaming up. That's a cool idea.
This is a good summation. We were overestimating the time difference. This is a good summation though of the editor's cut of Spider-Man 3. It only clocks in at 2 minutes shorter than the theatrical cut. But the editor's cut of Spider-Man 3 shuffles around the structure, extends one sequence, removes a handful of particularly egregious scenes, adds 3 new ones from the cutting room floor, and swaps out 3 other scenes for alternate versions.
Interesting.
Maybe the next time I'll watch that one.
I haven't seen the original in one full sitting since theaters, so I can't really attest to like how different or
it's been a while.
It is. But I definitely felt like there was something breezier in watching the editor's cut for me.
It sounds like the editor's cut fixes a lot of the issues, not all of them.
Yeah.
Well, because you can't take Venom out of the movie.
Right.
I think it's like pacing stuff.
And it's interesting to hear that, like, you guys came out of the movie a lot more positive than Ben and I. That theatrical cut is definitely a slog to get through. I think maybe next time, if should I ever desire to watch this movie again, the editor's cut is the way to go.
I didn't even know it existed until Ryan mentioned it, and I was like, well, if that exists, let's do it. Like, why not try and watch a better version of this one that we know is the worst of the three?
To me, like, knowing that there's an editor's cut, I'm intrigued and I kind of want to watch it, but at the same time, I don't.
The part that got me is that, like, I didn't know. I don't think you knew either. The fact that they said blatantly, yeah, they moved the structure of the film around. I'm like, oh,
and yeah,
that might be a big difference.
It's been like 10 years, so I can't even tell you like how
because the structure felt pretty good, honestly. Like even though the movie's overstuffed with elements, I didn't feel like the way we were flowing from story beat to story beat or the pacing was bad.
Yeah.
Real quickly, Mag has a comment. James Cromwell as Captain Stacy felt not used a lot.
That's right.
I 100% agree with you. And when he was used, I hated it. I love James Cromwell, but like not used well.
So James Cromwell's still alive, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I actually had to look up.
He's in the multiverse.
I also had to make sure and look up that Rosemary Harris was still alive because I was like, please don't be dead. Please don't be dead. Oh,
she's,
good.
yeah,
she's still kicking. Which yay.
I want to start pumping out a few of these talking points.
Yes.
Bryce Dallas Howard was not a bad choice for Gwen Stacy, but Gwen Stacy was a bad choice for this movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
100%.
Why not do Felicia? Dan.
Why not do Felicia?
Why not do Felicia?
Bro, like the behind the scenes, like they were gonna set up Felicia too, and like she was gonna be Black Cat in this fourth movie. Like, so much opportunity.
That fourth movie, like
Lizard Black Cat, that would have been killer.
There was also Vulture. Remember, one version of the script had Vulture, and Black Cat was going to be his daughter.
Hell yeah, I'm into it.
This movie does a really good job right from the beginning of getting across this idea of like Peter's on the upswing. Peter, everything's coming up. Peter,
they love
like
me.
everything's coming up so good for Peter. It's a real good pivot from where we've had Peter up through from the first film to the second film to the
if you
third
think
film.
about like the opening, like Spider-Man 1, you want to know who I am? I'm just an ordinary blah, blah, blah. And then like the third one's like, it's me, I'm Spider-Man, I'm having a great day. Like it's such a drastic change. I love it.
Yeah, he's evolved so much. And then the second one, like where he's so melancholic because he's like, I'm Spider-Man, but like my life kind of sucks. And, and there I have to see the love of my life on a billboard every single day. Like it's really good progressionally, like between the three films. I think it's really nice. Church is doing the work for the character. I think he's really good. Aunt May's always top notch. I really love her scene talking. I really love her scene talking about the proposal, giving him the ring. Ben's very beautiful personal proposal that he does, and Peter's like, "Cool, I'm gonna take this ring and I'm gonna do the tackiest, most cliche proposal in the world."
I am French.
It's cool.
I mean, but again, that's perfect for Peter Parker, that dweeb.
Right, exactly. We've covered a lot of these. Sandman's first reforming scene.
So good.
So good.
So good.
The way it takes its time of him like coming up, coming down, like how he has to create the moment where he has to create the fingers so he can grab the locket, I think is really great.
Like the furrowed brow because he can't grab it.
Right, exactly.
It's
I think it's very well visualized. I don't know what they were trying to create out there, but they created a Sandman, so good for them.
Yeah.
There's a moment in there where Ryan and I were both like, man, what if Mary Jane became Venom in this movie?
Oh man,
where there's a moment where she's in the apartment without Peter and the symbiote's also in the frame and she's trying to leave because the door is jammed and she's trying to leave. And I'm like, yo, what if the symbiote just took her right now and fed off her negative energy? Could you imagine?
And then it's like she becomes like a big Broadway star but through negative energy and like, oh man, crazy.
What a wild turn that would have been. Science and model lady Gwen Stacy. I don't know why she had to be both.
I don't know, man.
Unsung hero sometimes. Ted Raimi playing off J.K. Simmons is also a big reason why Jameson works so well.
It's hip. It's now. I made that one.
And wow.
That's Ivan Raimi.
That's Ted Raimi.
That's Ted Raimi.
They got a whole bunch
Sam
of
Raimi's brother.
I never knew that. I just thought it was just some random actor.
He is in every Sam Raimi movie.
Yeah,
kind of like Bruce Campbell.
Ted Raimi.
Yep.
He what was the nope, it's gone forever.
Bye. Bye.
The basketball bit.
Basketball bit?
Oh, well, when they're in Harry's house.
Oh,
after the amnesia,
and he's like, "Hey, man, like when we were in high school, and Ryan and I were both like, I'm getting the Room vibes out
like
of this one. Like they're so awkward with each other. Like that scene just doesn't work.
Then the vase drops, and he's like, "Wow, I got super speed."
That's a real bad bit. Just a weird kind of arc that they're doing with Mary Jane in this movie. I don't think it all totally works. Like with
I like the beginning of it so much.
The beginning of it is
Yeah.
good, but like I get why Kirsten Dunst isn't a big fan of it. Like it feels a little directionless for her.
It's a bummer because like it starts off good of like her partner not realizing what's going on, but then it's just the trope. Oh, I just getting kidnapped again.
Right.
Blap, blap.
Yeah. Yeah, the Peter kiss with Gwen we talked about, like just insanely out of place.
Yeah.
I really do like though that Peter's ego is like out of control, and that's like a motivating factor for where he's
It's
at.
the
in
first
his
time
life.
he's
Like,
ever been like
he's
truly
never
happy.
been cool.
Yeah.
He's finally cool. He's the popular one through Spider-Man. Like I think that part is executed well. His ego being out of control even before the suit. I think that part is executed well. Like the kiss thing is too far, but like that aspect of it, I think is done.
I love overconfident
well.
Peter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mag wants to point out Bernard.
Yep.
Guest or guest.
Yeah, Bernard's pretty good. Thankfully the editor's cuts out the scene where he says your father was impaled on his own glider. That's not in the editor's cut.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
It actually makes Harry's turn better.
Yes.
Because he does it on his own volition.
Right. Yeah. Yep. Great action in the Sandman Spider-Man first fight.
Bro,
I think it's done real
into
well.
The train. Oh
I
my
love Spider-Man fully riding on his ego train, encountering Sandman, being like, I don't know if you've heard, but I'm the sheriff around these parts. I'm like, oh my god, Peter!
It's like time to get your ass kicked.
Bro, he's surfing on the back of like car doors. It's great.
I do like the line where he's like takes off his mask and his boot, but at the same time, it's like, where did these guys come from?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a cool idea to use Sandman to dredge up and re-explore the loss of Uncle Ben and reanalyze it, but I definitely think it could have been executed better into this film. And like you can see where there's supposed to be like an emotional arc and connection thing for Peter in this film, but like it just gets so screwed up. I'm glad to have Connors in it more.
Yeah.
But like you didn't put any of this stuff on you, did you, Peter?
So the thing about like Marco having been responsible partially for Uncle Ben's death, like I really hate the scene where Captain Stacy brings them in and tells them about it.
Yeah.
I'm like, nobody would ever do this. This doesn't make any sense. Like it's just to motivate Peter getting upset about it now. Like nobody would go like, hey, by the way, your uncle, turns out we found out we caught the wrong, that wasn't the guy. We had the guy. We don't have the guy. He's on the loose. But we thought now is the time when we should tell you.
Why
when
wouldn't you
he's
tell
on the
him
loose.
Like 2 days ago? It was like 2 days ago he broke out. I was like, you think you should have told him sooner?
And like there's no reason that they don't even have like any bullshit reason to be suspecting that like, oh, he might come after the family for some stupid reason. They don't have that. Like they're just dredging up this traumatic pain for this family for no good reason. Like I hate that moment so much. It's such bullshit script writing that makes no goddamn sense.
It's tying the villain and the hero together in a way that's like doesn't.
There
really
would
work.
have been a better, more organic way that we could have gotten to here, and like this is just bad. It's just bad
Absolutely.
writing.
Yeah. I don't like this movie very much.
I think it's fine. I think there's certainly better elements than I remember.
I do like it's so weird, like Peter Parker's energy when he's doing the Spider-Man killed him and he's got that big old smile when he tells Aunt May.
Oh yeah.
And like she does this is the part where like they start to walk back that idea that like Aunt May might think that he's Spider-Man because she says like Spider-Man doesn't kill people, and when it's not like, Peter, what did you do?
Yeah.
I wish. Could you imagine
happened.
if that was her reaction? Then Peter would, but you can't do that because then Peter wouldn't put on the suit. He'd be shaken out of it.
Yeah.
God,
that'd be such a good scene. Like
I do think like it's not. I don't think that it's done very well. That like as far as Peter knows, at 2 different points he killed 2 people. Like he killed Flint, and he might as well think he killed Harry too. And he just doesn't.
He blew
carry
up
the weight
that dude's
of that
face.
at all.
He might as well have killed him
at any point, which is kind of strange. And he even kind of does like he does. They do the bit where like he thinks, "Ooh, I maybe killed Flint Marco. I don't feel so good." So he puts the suit away. But like it's timed improperly in the film because he ends up like picking it back up later when like everything falls apart with Mary Jane and all that. And he's like, I guess I'll just be bad anyway. I don't care that I killed
let's
somebody.
live in it.
Yeah, that doesn't totally land the execution. Yeah. The bridge scene is some good acting though.
Yes,
from both of them.
Yes.
Of like that painful moment
when she breaks up with him.
Yeah. You're gonna have to tell me if this isn't in the
so
cut,
good.
but I hope it is. But Peter in the lounge chair after he figures out that Harry was playing him.
Oh, okay.
And
so
he shows up in Harry's apartment
when
and he's laying in the lounge chair and he's like, "That was quite a performance today." And Harry turns around.
Yeah, how does that scene start for you guys? When Peter goes to confront Harry when they have the fight.
He's in the
window.
He's in the window.
Okay, so in ours,
Oh.
he's sitting in the chair that his father was murdered in the same position, saying
He's like
yeah.
he's laying on the same lounge chair he laid Norman down on, and he's looking at him and he's grinning. He's like, "That was quite a performance today." And
It's effed up.
Harry turns around with this also same smile. He's like, "I thought you'd appreciate it." I'm like, "I want this to go on for like 3 minutes of them just like smirk bullshitting
It's
each
so much
other."
meaner. Yeah.
They basically recreate the shot where Otto shows up in the window.
Okay.
Oh,
Um,
lame. Yeah, the editor's cut's way
yeah.
better.
Spider-Man.
Bully Maguire is in full force in that.
Yeah,
scene.
he's just laying back on the lounge chair. He's like, "That was quite a performance today, Harry." And Harry's like, "Oh man, I'm so glad you liked it." Like, that's
I'm
what
gonna
they're
put some
doing. They're doing
dirt in your
this
eye.
shit-eating grin with each other. It
Great
really
fight.
works.
Really good fight too. Good personal fist fight.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
I wish that energy between them went on for like
Yeah.
forever.
Yeah, I like the scene where he where Peter kind of gets wise and he just turns back and just like winks at Peter like, "Hey, you know what's up."
So good. I really like Bully Maguire. That's the
I
joke.
do
Like,
too.
I like the stuff like that he does with Mary Jane later in like the jazz scene. Like I think sucks.
That's the part that
Peter like embracing his dark dweeb is like so fun.
And I
like
love
I
that
accept it.
Like the women on the street that he's pointing to all look at him and like, ugh.
Dude, some of them are into it. And
some
then,
of them
like,
are
half
into it,
them
and
are
some
like,
of them aren't.
There's
Yeah.
like very few who are like, oh, okay, but almost 90% of the girls when he's like trying to show off is like they're like, nope.
When I was younger, I did not like the scene, but now that I'm older, I'm like 100% that is Peter Parker. He would so do that.
Especially like the film building you like. This is how Peter reacts to having a massive ego. It also makes sense that like Peter's idea of like being the bad boy, being the cool bad boy, becomes this. This is this version of Peter Parker thinking he's being cool bad boy. It's his internalized and generated and then exaggerated id.
Yeah, like I'm.
Go
ahead.
Even when he slips the waitress the money at the nightclub,
Sweet legs.
and it's like, find some shade, thank you. And then she goes right this way. And
Yeah.
you could tell she's like, I don't like this dude,
Yeah.
but it's like
Again,
fine.
like taking this girl to your ex-girlfriend's bar on a date. That is awful, but that is something Peter Parker would do. Everything else is like, it's a little much. I think that might be a little much.
Yeah, they just, I don't know. So I put up a poll on Twitter.
Uh-huh.
I asked what the favorite is.
That's gonna be a shock.
43% said Spider-Man,
Wow.
57% said Spider-Man 2, and 0% said Spider-Man 3.
Yeah.
Surprising.
Yeah.
I am. Yeah,
I just always
That
forget to shout out.
tracks.
I always forget to shout out the
Sure.
stuff I do online. So I wanted to be sure that I remembered this one.
There's a lot of good moments in the bullying Maguire stuff. There's the leveraging of Jonah, flirting with Betty Brant,
The cake
Yes.
girl.
abusing the landlord's daughter.
God.
Oh, Jesus. But it all makes sense and it works, I think, in the narrative of what they're creating.
Yeah.
Yeah. We talked about that. Harry gets hit in the head the same way like 3 times in this movie, no joke.
yeah, he does.
That poor boy.
Oh, I don't know what we call evil Harry, like not bully Harry, but like the confrontation scene where he's like, "I'm the other guy."
Yeah,
It's so juicy.
I wanted it to come from me.
Yeah.
I'm the other guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like then the confrontation battle where he's like, "Oh," and her lips like strawberries.
Yes.
God, it's so thick. I love it. Like I have such a good time with it.
Yeah, I think the team up is solid fun. I think the final fight has a lot of good emotion in it. I like how Harry dies, the same way that his dad does,
Yeah.
skewered with his own glider.
Poetry at rhymes.
Yeah, there's good things in this movie. It just doesn't come together.
Yeah.
In any real meaningful way for me.
That makes sense.
Sure. Yeah, I think that it suffers from there's clearly like a good idea of like how to tie in Flint with these. The thing that is that like I can see a good version of this movie where you did include the black symbiote suit and you did include Eddie Brock, but you didn't make Venom in this movie.
Save that for later.
So that Peter's like emotional distress stuff and him getting out of control with his emotions is tied to the black suit, but not to the point where we have to shoehorn Venom into this film.
Yeah.
But there's clearly like good ideas of what was going to be emotionally important, especially between like Flint and Peter and Harry and Peter, and that being the driving narrative of this film. And it's a shame that it didn't fully get to commit all the way to that.
You could I'm like everything that they do with Venom, just like the scene where Eddie turns into Venom, have that be like the final scene of the movie.
Yeah.
And he can still Goblin and Peter can still fight Sandman because he's 100-foot tall sand monster.
Right.
Like all that stuff could still work, and to save Venom for like
or not even have it be the final scene in the movie. Like honestly, that would be one of those things where like you don't see it till like Spider-Man 4, and it's like a flashback to that moment that Eddie was down there. Like you see him because you don't want the last thing to be. You want to have a full, complete emotional arc of this film. So you have Peter like part with it at the beginning.
First
the third act,
post-credit
parts
scene.
with the suit. You could,
yeah.
but like the parts with the suit. And then the third act is him like fixing up these things with the Sandman, with Harry and all that, and Mary Jane, and he handles all that. And then in the fourth film, you're like, well, like you cut back to that moment, and it's right at the bells, and it's the suit falling onto Eddie, and now that is part of the driving.
And we don't know what happened to Eddie
film.
in the third movie,
right?
And
Exactly.
We'll find out. Yeah, that works. Man, let's just go back in time and make this happen, Sam Raimi.
Yeah. I do want to say like a final thought about the Spider-Man trilogy before Brandon starts the book club, which I see he's raring to go.
No, I just
wanted to say.
I thought we were winding down.
No, we are winding down. It's a final thing I wanted to say because this was a great point that came up. We were having a conversation with Forrest about the Spider-Man films, and I thought this was a really good thing that came out of that conversation, which is that watching the three together, like even with Spider-Man 3 being a little lackluster, there is something really incredible and powerful about seeing what they wanted the story to be across the three films. You watch as the films are go from being about Spider-Man to really being about Peter Parker. And like even then we've talked about like it being Tobey Maguire is very much Peter Parker in Spider-Man, but like Spider-Man 1, is about the journey of like becoming Spider-Man, being Spider-Man. But Spider-Man 2 is about like being Peter Parker in conjunction with Spider-Man. And does that work? Can I be Spider-Man and be Peter Parker? And the question in 3 is really, can you be Peter Parker? Like that's the question that he's facing, because like you are Spider-Man. Can you be Peter Parker though, bro? Can you
you'll never not be Spider-Man.
And I think that's really well articulated by the final shots of all three films, because the final shot of the first one is Spider-Man in front of the American flag, superhero, great. The second one we've talked about is that shot with Mary Jane with like looking wistful, like complicated. It is now like you are Peter Parker and Spider-Man. This is what that looks like. Not exactly the best, but trying to do it. And the third one ends with Peter Parker in that complicated. It's on him, and it's him trying to like just make the best of what he's got right now. He's got to try and just do better with Mary Jane, and that's it. And I think that's also a really good decision for a last shot of a movie.
It's them hugging, right?
Yeah, it's them. It's them in the dance club doing the dance. Like, I think that's a really good last shot for not a great film all the way throughout. I still think the last shot has that same kind of poignant thoughtfulness about what arc are we driving Peter Parker through in all three of these films.
Does ours end that way?
What?
Does ours end that way?
With them dancing together?
With them dancing?
Yeah, with them dancing in the nightclub. Yeah.
And then like like to that point, I think Spider-Man 2 really does hit into the middle of that really well, because it's that beat with him taking off. Like, who do I need to be? I need to be Spider-Man. I need to be Peter Parker. Oh, I need to be both because I'm Spider-Man, but I am Peter Parker. And the only way Spider-Man can save Otto is to also say he is Peter Parker.
Peter Parker saves the day, not Spider-Man.
Yeah, and I think that's such a good, like, there is such a good thoughtful arc even up into the third film that it's just a shame that it's not as artfully well crafted all the way through.
The thoughts are there.
Good films though.
So if there's anything more,
I covered it.
I am happy to have rewatched these. I'm excited.
Let's rate them.
No.
It's everyone's just gonna be the same.
I really happy we did this. So we're doing this to get ready for Spider-Man No Way Home, where a lot of these guys are coming back, and may or may not know there was going to be a Spider-Man 4. Sam Raimi was signed on to do a 4 Spider-Man film. There were rumors about Vulture by John Malkovich, but eventually it does look like they settled on the Lizard.
Real quick, so because I've been watching tons of videos, the Spider-Man 4 was in pre-production. They were gonna do it, but the studio was making Sam Raimi was very uncomfortable at the studio, because every time he would go to a new meeting, they're like, "Cool, you really want to make the Spider-Man movie, Sam?" Because he was in a contract with them.
Yeah.
And he was just like, "Do you guys want me to make this movie or not?" So after like a year of them like bullshitting him, he just left the project. Yeah.
The other side of that, which is what I was trying to get at, was the reason why a lot of that fourth movie ended up in Amazing Spider-Man 1, is because Sam Raimi said he could do it, but it would take 4 years because he wanted to do something in between. So instead of the 2-year gaps, and Sony didn't want to wait that long.
Yeah.
And they took that as an excuse to part with him. However, Amazing Spider-Man still came out 4 years after Spider-Man 3, so they still had to wait 4 years to get their Spider-Man movie.
Yeah.
So
the other thing that really gets me about that is because like if you kind of knew in the back of your mind you want Sam Raimi for a Spider-Man 4, or you want a Spider-Man 4 in general, one way or another, like, why not take your time to build up Venom? I don't know why they felt like they had to just shove Venom into this freaking movie.
It's a producer.
Like, you could have just taken your time and had Eddie Brock be a proper character just on the sidelines of the story you're telling in Spider-Man 3, and then get to Venom for the next one.
Well, it's super interesting. Like, we won't talk about it a lot, but like this is the beginning, really. It's Spider-Man, and Spider-Man 3 is like the beginning of like the studio interference of big blockbusters. Because like before this, we had like the Batman movies and Superman and like and like the X-Men, and like Spider-Man 3 is like, oh, they can interfere and really mess with it.
There is a lot. I said that watching the Raimi Spider-Man movies and all the Spider-Man movies throughout the 2000s, like you could see the evolution of comic book movie filmmaking through them all. And Spider-Man 3, in a similar vein to Spider-Man and Iron Man: The Dark Knight, like is a game changer. Unfortunately, in Spider-Man 3's case, not a good one.
Yeah. The Spider-Man movies were like the first like big blockbusters to like X-Men made money, but Spider-Man was the first to like make that like almost $1 billion. And they're like, okay, what will get more people? And it's like the big characters. And this is the first time like studio was like really like,
after Spider-Man 2, the biggest thing that Sony saw was that people were begging for Venom.
Yeah.
And so that's the primary reason why they forced Sam Raimi to include him.
Understand.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's neither will Sam Raimi, and he's still mad about it.
So the third film was going to be the Lizard with Black Cat. The fourth film was going to be the Lizard with Black Cat, and there's Mysterio concept art. There was concept art made, but like I said, it was going to take them 4 years, so they canned him. And so 4 years later, The Amazing Spider-Man. And that's all preamble because we're talking about The Amazing Spider-Man duology next week.
Woo, the duology.
Andrew Garfield, Marc Webb films. So
Web it up.
Stay tuned for that.
I'm so pumped.
Yeah. All right. Shall we get into our book club then?
Okay.